Kathy?
Kathy.
Okay. Good evening, Don.
Hey, Don.
Hello, everyone.
Don. Hey, Don.
I was thinking of you, Dave, this weekend. I was at House of Woo in West Warwick.
Oh, we did Koo tonight. We did sushi from Koo tonight, Don.
Yep,
They're really good.
I bet.
Thursday night's becoming takeout night.
Do you know that Koo, that restaurant, one of our elementary schools, they called up and I can't remember when it was, but they donated food for all the staff. They considered them as, first responders, and I thought that was so nice.
That is nice.
Yeah,
They
Very nice.
That's a nice restaurant. It really is
Yes.
nice.
Yep.
I've been going there since the beginning. They're really good people. They really are.
Yeah, I've never been there.
Oh, well, I'll have to take you there.
All right. I'm just going to run and get my coffee. I'll be right back.
All right. We're waiting on James anyway.
I have my water. Oh, boy. How you been, Kathy?
I'm hanging in there, extremely busy at work. Can barely breathe sometimes.
I know that feeling.
Yeah.
it's James.
Hey, James.
Hey, James. Hey, Luke.
Luke.
Haha. Okay.
Ooh.
Looks like everybody's back. All right. I have 5:32, so I guess we can start. I'd like to call the meeting to order at 5:32. Could we have a roll call, please?
Kathy Patnode,
Here.
Dave Florio,
Here.
Luke Murray,
Here.
Donna Colunian,
Here.
James Pearson,
Here.
Craig Levis. I see you.
Sorry.
Yes, you do.
Here,
And Sarah, she won't be joining us tonight? Okay.
Okay. Great, thank you. Could we have a vote to go into executive session, please?
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we go into executive session.
I second the motion.
And I have 5:32 still, so could we have a roll call, please?
Kathy Patnode,
Yes?
Dave Florio,
Yes.
Luke Murray,
Yes.
Donna Colunian,
Yes.
James Pearson.
Okay, then we can recess into executive session and come back out into the public for 6 o'clock.
Okay.
All right, everybody. We'll see you on the other one.
All right.
Okay. Yeah. Hey, Linda. Congratulations. Andy,
Hi, Dave.
can't believe it.
Guess who I'm with? I'm here with Anthony. Come here, come say hi to Mr.
Where's
Flores.
Anthony?
I'm
Where's
at-
Anthony?
I'm at Anthony's house.
Anthony, how are you?
Hi,
Hey, Anthony.
what's going on?
Hey, man, how you been?
I'm good. How are you?
Oh, good. Good. Hey, Mike's working for the Providence City Council.
Oh, no way. That's awesome.
Yeah. His
Right.
girlfriend is wonderful. She graduated from Brown.
Get on.
Works at AS. A little bit.
Marty pants.
Anthony Riolis.
Hi, Maggie.
Hello.
Hey, look at Anthony. He's got the Tampa Bay shirt on, man. Oh, Anthony.
Hey.
A puppy.
This is my grand dog. This is Ray.
Oh, let's see.
We have a grand dog too.
Here he is, look.
Oh, he's adorable.
Wow. Hey, you know, if it wasn't for COVID, we would be leaving for Oklahoma tomorrow.
Oh,
Our son's wedding.
The year of reschedules.
Yeah. Well, they postponed it, but they haven't rescheduled. So, you know, hopefully that's coming soon.
They're buying a house. Oh, man.
What's that?
It's not.
Anytime, soon enough.
Yeah. Probably the spring.
How things in Tampa Bay? I saw Mike. He lived down the street. Mike.
LaVoy.
Mike LaVoy. Yeah.
Yeah,
You
he's
see him,
good.
huh?
He's doing
Yeah.
well down here. Yeah, we tee up every once in a while. Hit the links, you know, from time to time. So small
Nice.
world. He's down
Really
here. It's
cool.
cool.
That's nice. Andy, you must love it there.
it's very nice. It's very hot this week, but it's very nice.
Oh yeah. Well, you know, it's
It's
Florida.
Florida.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, it tends to be hot.
You don't mind Anthony, do you?
No, my blood's thinned out. I'm good. I'm weak when I go back home. I'm freezing. I need like 5 cuts.
Are you guys killing the Yankees?
We're up right now.
Hopefully
2-1.
tonight we put it to bed.
Oh yeah. Put it to bed.
Very good.
Yeah, so we got the playoff beard working. We got all the Rays gear. We're doing what we can.
There you go.
There you go.
Yeah.
And,
Hey, good seeing you guys.
Good seeing you
Nice
too,
seeing you.
Anthony.
All right.
Bye.
Bye bye.
I go to daddy.
Oh my goodness, they're all grown up.
They're all grown up.
Yup, he's gonna be 29.
Oh, so's mine. Oh my God, yeah, they're all grown up.
Yep. They're old. We're old. We're all old.
You're not old, Andy.
Yeah, I am.
Remember when they were kids?
I do. They used to
Oh,
play
man.
baseball together.
Yeah, they used to play baseball together.
They had
Remember
a
when
good
you worked
team.
at the restaurant?
Yep.
Oh my God, yeah. Oh. And look where you are now. You're retired. You're retired.
Yup.
I can't
Almost.
believe it.
Almost retired.
Almost. We're gonna miss you.
Thanks. Yeah, it's been a fun experience. A lot of different experiences for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're a good friend, Andy.
Thanks, Dave. You too. All right, tough guy, calm down. Sit. Be a good boy. You have to sit still.
He's a good dog, Andy?
Yeah, he's only 2 months old. They've only had him for about a month. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's cute. He did 3 miles with me this morning with those little
Is that
tiny
right?
legs. Yeah,
Wow. So you're gonna relocate down there?
maybe. I keep an eye on stuff down here, see what's what. We'll see.
Lakeland's nice. It's not too far, you know.
Yeah, I mean, where he is, he's really right in the heart of St. Pete. He's really in the city.
Yeah.
And it's nice. There's a lot you can do on foot. You don't even really have to have a car down here,
Nice.
but we'll see.
Where's your tan?
I just got here. This is my first day, Donna. Give me a break.
Be lying outside. Cool.
Hi, Brooke.
Hi, Dave.
So
Dave,
your
my
dad-
son loves tuning in early just to hear you.
Oh.
He always says to me, come on, we have to get the school committee meeting on. We have to watch Dave and Maggie.
I sincerely apologize if any of you heard the bomb that I dropped just before
We didn't.
they had solved. Oh, I'm so
My
embarrassed.
son and you two should have a sitcom.
I'm so
Your
sorry.
favorite thing to watch on TV.
Dave put his glass of water on the floor and I came over to help him and I kicked it over and it just came out. It just,
No one heard it. No
I
one heard it.
apologize. Even though I say that word about 50 times a day, I don't usually say it in public. So I apologize.
What are you apologizing for?
Oh.
I dropped a bomb while you guys were,
Ooh, in between?
No, private.
Come on.
No.
it was right before you guys adjourned to executive session. I
Ah,
came in to help him get
Yeah.
into executive session. I kicked over glass that was on the floor and it was full of water and it spilled all over the rug and I just
you lost it.
I just spewed an expletive.
Oh,
So
boy.
I apologize if anyone heard it.
What I find it's easier with the Chromebook because with the Chromebook, what happens, I found this out tonight, is that all you have to do is just click and it goes into executive session, then it goes into public session. I don't think I have two different, I don't know. It just seemed very easy to get in tonight. Thank you, Jim, if you're there. Thank you, Donna. You know, you guys.
You still were late to our meeting.
I know. That was my fault. I ran through those minutes, I'll tell you. Good thing I'm a speed reader sometimes. Not as much as when I was in college, though, but I'm pretty quick. Boom, boom, boom. Hi, Linda. Linda, yeah. Brooke left. Mr. Chase, he's there. Tim Chase. Hi, Tim.
Hi,
Had a
Andy.
good time.
Hi,
I had a
Kathy.
good, yeah.
Feel like I'm on Romper Room, you know? You remember when they used to say, and I see so-and-so and
Oh,
I
gee.
had a good time. I had a good time with Chris over the Tim over the summer. Tim, you had all kinds of good stuff going on this summer during the coronavirus.
Yeah, trying to keep it interesting for people on social media a little bit and give them things to think about or read or just interact because everybody was, it was a tough time for people to interact with.
Oh, yeah, it was terrible, wasn't it?
So
It was terrible.
give people something to talk about or do, or, just go down memory lane when things were a little nicer, a little more fun when you were younger, or, music that you liked or, whatever.
Yeah, it was really cool. I liked it. Thank you. Thank you, Tim. And Brooke, I saw your dad yesterday. Yeah. He looks really good.
been busy. He's working a lot.
Yes, he has been. Yeah.
Okay, are we all on? I think we're all on, right? Why don't we reopen this? Yeah, okay. So I'd like to reconvene the open session of the Coventry School Committee. I have 6:02. And I'd like to have a moment of silence as we consider the work we have this evening. Thank you. Okay, I believe it is Vice Chairperson Florio's turn to read the mission of Coventry Public Schools.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The mission of the Coventry Public Schools is to inspire, support, and challenge all students in an inclusive community to be critical thinkers, effective communicators, reflective learners, responsible individuals, and global citizens.
Thank you, Mr. Florio. And just to notify the public, the school committee met in executive session and for about a half hour, a little bit less, and we considered the executive session minutes from 9/24, 2020, as well as our homeschooling requests. Both of those were votes 5-0. That being said, is there a motion to seal the minutes of the executive session?
Madam Chair, I make a motion that the records of the executive session be kept closed pursuant to sections 42-46-4 and 42-46-5.
I second the motion.
Thank you. Could we have a roll call vote, please?
Kathy Patnode,
Yes.
Dave Florio,
Yes.
Luke Murray,
Yes.
Donna Colunian, Donna,
Donna, do we have a,
You didn't hear me? No.
no,
Okay.
James Pearson.
Yes.
thank you. Motion carries 5-0. Moving on to our consent agenda, is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented / amended.
I second the motion.
Any questions from the committee? Seeing none, all in roll call, please. Vote.
Yep, Kathy Patnode,
Yes.
Dave Florio,
Yes.
Luke Murray,
Yes.
Donna Colunian,
Yes.
James Pearson,
Yes.
Your motion carries 5-0. Moving on to the public agenda, and just to notify the attendees present, any agenda item from here on is open to the public and open to their comment. If a vote is taken, a motion is called for. Before we actually call for the vote, the public can ask questions, comments, opinions to any of those agenda items. That being said, we're going to move on to agenda item number 6, which is the celebration of Andy Reels and Linda Bellemere. And so I assume, Mr. Levis, you want to take this? To
Sure,
start?
I will start. The way that in terms of the change in roles and responsibilities of hiring employees and separation, a lot of that is done with the superintendent or at the building level. And so in the past, when we've acknowledged retirements, they don't come before the school committee anymore. But there's a couple of exceptions that I felt it's important to make tonight, and wanted to bring forward. I see, we asked Linda to join the panel and to Andy, and I'm going to start off. They both have been incredible, significant contributors to the Coventry Public Schools and the Coventry community. And I know Linda started back in 1999 as a yard assistant, and she's worked for, somebody else is better in the math than me, but she's, for the last 3 years, I believe, she's been the confidential clerk to the high school principal. She's also been the president of the SRP and has done a phenomenal job, advocating for employees. We recently had negotiated a contract that Linda spearheaded, and she's been a pleasure to work with. I was when we go to meetings, superintendent meetings, and talk about the relationships that we have with our union leadership. It's not always the case across the state. We work really hard, but it takes good people and solid individuals that are, true to their passion and commitment. And Linda is definitely one of those individuals. So I know, just wanted to congratulate Linda. I know she keeps on coming in and out, trying to connect to this, to our panel here. But I wanted to congratulate her publicly. I know there's some people, after the school committee or individuals say something. I know there are a couple of individuals in the audience that want to say something. So I don't know if we want to handle one at a time, or you want me to do the same for Andy, and then we can go to the audience. What's your pleasure, Madam Chair?
Why don't we handle them separately?
Okay. All right. So again, Linda, I don't know if you can hear us, but we want to say congratulations. Thank you for all your service. And you're going to be an incredible loss to this school community. And, again, we want to thank you. So I think you missed all the other things I said about you, but there's many more people I'm sure that want to speak. So Madam Chair, I'll turn it back over to you. And
Thank you, Mr. Levis. Okay, Mr. Florio, it's your turn to go first this meeting.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. Linda, I remember in '99 when you were hired as a yard aide. And you've come a long way. And I am proud of you. Very, president of the TA union, and you've done a lot and accomplished a lot. And I hate to see you leave. But you take care. If you ever need anything, the school committee will always be here for you. You take care, Linda. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Mr. Florio. So, Mr. Murray, you're next.
How do I top Dave? I guess
That's a hard one.
all I can say is thank you very much for your service. It is appreciated. I know it's not an easy job, and I'm sure I'm looking forward to hearing Brooke, but thank you very much for your service.
Thank you, Mr. Murray. And Mrs. Clooney, you're next.
Linda, I just, I want to thank you for everything that you've done. You've worked many hours and you've done a wonderful job, and I wish you all the best. There's nothing better than to be able to retire and enjoy life. So I wish you all the best.
Thank you, Mrs. Clooney. And finally, Mr. Pearson.
I don't know what else to say. Again, how can you top Dave? But thank you. Thank you for your service to the town, to the school department. Happy retirement, and good luck with wherever life takes you next.
Thank you, Mr. Pearson. Linda, I just want to say thank you for, it must be 21 years of service to the Coventry Public Schools. I know that your colleagues are happy for you, but also sad to see you go. The times that I've worked with you on negotiations, et cetera, have always been so respectful. I so much appreciate all the work you've done, both as a school employee as well as someone who has represented her colleagues in the union and her in just an exceptional way. So I want to thank you so much for all of your service and congratulate you. And I hope that the next chapter of your life is just spectacular and that you enjoy every single minute of your retirement. That being said, if you want to put your hand up, I see one. I don't know if any of the panelists want to say anything.
Yeah, Kathy, can I speak? Is that okay? Well, first
Yes.
of all, Linda's texting me right now, and she's telling me to say thank you to you guys because she's having some issues with her microphone. And she also says she's crying, so maybe that's why she has a video off. But I just want to say, when you think about a school, like ours, people always think the principal is the one running the building, but that could not be farther from the truth. And when I took over 3 years ago, and I was really, really nervous about it and unsure, I really had nothing to worry about because Linda was right there. She has guided me through every single thing. She's done it right alongside me, and I cannot thank her enough. She wears so many hats in our building. If you walk in that office, you see how busy it is. You know, she's on the phone. She's got people in front of her. I'm barking out orders. You know, kids need something. And she handles it all. She's such a great multitasker. She's so bright. She's got unbelievable accounting skills. She's just a problem solver. She is a counselor to everybody in the building. She's really our school mom. Everyone goes to her with their issues. And, you know, she's really become my personal therapist, for lack of a better word. She just knows how to deal with me. And I know everyone thinks I'm really easy to deal with, but she sees the other side. And she's just been amazing. And there is no way I could have done this job for the last few years without her. And so these are some big shoes to fill, and I'm going to miss her a ton. She's really become a great friend as well. So Linda, if you can hear me or see me, I just thank you from the bottom of my heart. You are going to be sorely missed in our school, and I know how much you love this school and love the people in it, and it shows every day that you come to work. So best of luck in your retirement, and come back and visit.
Thank you so much, Brooke. Are there any other panelists that would like to speak? You can just raise your hand and we'll see you. Otherwise, we'll bring it out to the attendees.
Oh, that's too bad. Tammy Anderson has her hand up.
Okay.
I'll bring her in right now. Tammy, microphone.
Wish I could speak. This is really pissing me off.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. Thank you for giving me some time tonight. I'm Tammy Anderson. I'm the of the SRP. And I just want to, wish Linda a lot of good luck. She's been active in the SRP for over 20 years, serving many different roles. Most recently, she's been our president for 3 years. And on behalf of the SRP board and its 239 members, I would like to express our gratitude for all of her accomplishments. Professionalism, dedication, and loyalty are unsurpassed. Most importantly, the friendships she has created along the way are everlasting. Linda, we wish you all the best and many years of happiness in your next chapter. Thank you.
Thank you, Tammy. I don't see any other hands raised. So I guess, Mr. Levis, you can move on to Andy.
All right. Well, Linda, again, want to thank you very much. And like I said, all the sentiment that everybody shared, we just, I know in my 5 years here, I appreciate very much the opportunity just to be open and honest with you, and your professionalism means so much to me. So again, thank you very much. Now we turn to Andy Reels, and Andy's worked. Usually I have some write-ups, right? Usually I read some script and Donna puts something together to me, but tonight I felt that would be just not appropriate. So I know Andy's worked from, again, 1999 seems to be the magic number here. Started off as a resource assistant, worked in a variety of different jobs, which I think has helped her as HR because she really understands, the different aspects of our employees. In 2014, she became the human resource manager, and just recently in 2019, we promoted Andy to an HR director of human resources. And I have to be cautious, but there's a good friend of mine who happens to be an attorney that I know very well, who works with a lot of HR individuals. And this individual, again, not to tarnish anybody else, so I'll phrase it appropriately, that Andy is as solid as anybody that's out there, and that's what you want. Coming into this community and a lot of changes, a lot of challenges, just being a new superintendent, just trying to get out of my own way, which can be a challenge on any given day. But Andy's always been there, the extreme confident, a taskmaster. Anybody knows me, I'm a big picture guy, but I'm all over the place. Andy is so detailed and regimented, and I can't imagine having been here and lasted 5 years without Andy's support. And I know I don't want to speak for Linda, and I don't want to speak for Miss Aronakis, but I know they rely on Andy, as so many of us do. I can't imagine, like I said, when Andy came in one day, she opened the door, came in with Don, and I'm thinking, this isn't good. HR director, the assistant superintendent, I figured I'm out the door, and Andy gave me her letter, and, I looked at it and I said, nope, there's no way I'm accepting this, but you'll be a huge loss, but I appreciate, and I'm sure this community appreciates, you've been just, this has been part of your journey, and you've definitely left your mark, and, I can't thank you enough. Like I said, I wish you the best, as I do Linda, in your future. You're both going to be a huge loss, but Andy, I don't know how I'm going to deal with situations without you, to go down a couple doors down just to say, Andy, can you do this, or can you get me this, or what do you think about this? And, but life goes on. So I just want to I'm rambling on. I just want to say thank you so much. I am so proud and fortunate to have known you and worked with you. And again, I wish you the best, and I'm definitely going to miss you both personally and professionally. So thank you very much. And I'll turn it over to Ms. Patno.
Thank you, Mr. Levis. Okay, Mr. Florio. Are you ready to speak about Andy?
I think so.
No tears.
No. I've known Andy, it's got to be at least 25 years, I guess.
40 years, Dave?
No, 25. Our kids played baseball together, and I coached them together, and Andy watched our son while Maggie and I were both working full time for a short time. Then she went to work for the school department, and I knew she would be awesome. I knew that. And she's done a wonderful job. Cheers to you, Andy. It's water. But I toast you in the work you've done for these years. Thank you, Andy. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Florio.
You're welcome. Thank you, Andy.
Mr. Murray.
Dave's making me wish I had a drink.
Only
Andy, obviously we didn't get to know each other really well, but all I heard was accolades when your name was brought up. And I know that this has been a difficult couple of years, but especially I know you had to power through the ransomware attack last year. And that was a big lift, and you stuck with us, as many of the administrators did. And I really do appreciate that. I know it's not always acknowledged. Public service is not easy. I'm in public service. It is a difficult job in and of itself. You have the added aspect of everyone is your boss from the taxpayer's perspective. So we appreciate all the efforts you put in, and I really hope you do enjoy retirement. It seems like you're down there visiting your son in much warmer environs. So hopefully you get to enjoy much more of it, and I wish you the best.
Thank you, Mr. Murray. Mrs. Colonian.
Andy, I want to echo what Mr. Murray said. Whenever your name came up, it was always in a positive light. You've done an incredible job for us, and I know Craig is going to miss you. That the person that comes in is really going to have some tough shoes to fill. You've done a really good job. You've really worked your way up, and you've done an awesome job. And I'm very jealous of the fact that you're retiring and I'm not. but good luck and enjoy your retirement. Enjoy your family.
Thank you, Mrs. Colonian. Mr. Pearson?
Again, echoing what everyone else is saying, thank you so much for your years of dedicated service to the town, to the school department, to our students, to our staff. I don't know what else to say. Everything everyone else said, just repeat, because agree. Every time your name was mentioned, it was always in a positive light, as being a tremendous asset to our school district, and big shoes to fill, I think is an understatement. So thank you again. Happy retirement. Again, wish you nothing but the best in what life brings you next.
Thank you, Mr. Pearson. And so finally, my thoughts. When I saw your name on our agenda, I literally was shocked. I was like, what? There's no way she's old enough to retire. I just was very surprised, and I realized straight away that the loss of your talent and professionalism was going to be huge for the district. I know that you and I have worked together on a few things, and you just have always shown the utmost professionalism, knowledge of your job, knowledge of all the ins and outs of what you had to do as an HR director. And I want to again reiterate what Mr. Murray said about the ransomware. The way you and Sarah and everyone had to pull the whole payroll together and figure out who got what, when, where, and how was tremendous. And will always be grateful for all the people that worked on that and made it work so that you made payroll on time. But outside of all of that, we're just going to miss you. And I know that your colleagues, whenever your name was brought up, there was a smile. When I attended the trust dinners the last couple of years, it was just a joy to see you amongst your colleagues and see how much fun you had with them. And you could tell you were all friends. And so I know they're going to miss you, but I'm sure they're extremely happy for you. And like Mrs. Kalunian said, I look at myself and say, and why are you still working? But congratulations. Enjoy every single minute of your free time with your family. And I wish you the best of times and health and a wonderful retirement. And you will surely, surely be missed. Okay, is there anyone? I have one hand up. I have two hands up. Oh, I have some on the panel. I think I saw yours first, Sarah.
I don't even really know where to begin. I can't imagine having walked into central office without having you to get through what we get through every single day. And I just got right next door to you, which is even more frustrating that you're going now. But truly, you have been my savior in budgeting and getting through all of the craziness, both from a friend and somebody to laugh with when we want to cry, but we have to just get through the day with all that has gone on, and just your knowledge and expertise and the history that you have with the district is just going to be so impossible to replace. So I am so happy for you as a person and as a friend, and the time you'll get to enjoy with your family, but I will miss you sorely as a coworker, and Coventry Schools is definitely experiencing a huge loss tonight.
Thank you, Mrs. Mangarelli. I believe Mr. Coward had his hand up as well.
Yep. So first, I want to also congratulate Linda. I haven't known Linda that long, but I will say that Linda has been quite the advocate and a strong representative from the high school and from our union, and it's always been a pleasure to work with her. So congratulations to Linda. To Andy, Andy is probably one of the hardest workers in our central office. She's there on weekends. She's one of the first people in. She's often the last person out, and she puts in as much effort as I've ever seen anybody put in at one time. The funny thing about Andy, I got three funny things because I think she'll appreciate all of them. So Andy multitasks very well, and Andy will call my extension from her extension. And if I'm not in the office, it will go to voicemail. And then for a solid 2 minutes, I'll have a voicemail of just the sound of her hand typing on a keyboard because she doesn't realize she's still recording. And she'll just be typing faster than I can think. So that's one. Two, she once asked me to go for a walk during our lunch break, and she almost killed me because she walks 700 miles an hour. And the third thing is, with Andy, she cries when she's sad, but she also cries when she's happy. So sometimes you just don't know if you're making her laugh or if you're making her cry because the tears flow either way. She's been great to work with. When I came onto the district district 8 years ago. She was actually the first person in HR to welcome me in and process my paperwork. It's been a pleasure to work with her. She's been a great friend and a great colleague, and I wish her.
Thank you, Mr. Cowett. I just wanted to comment too. I saw your little dog giving you kisses, and I'm sure all of us would love to be with you and actually give you kisses like your little dog. But outside of that, I think we can go to the attendees. Mr. Murphy, there's a couple of
I
hands
just
raised.
wanted to, before we moved on, I just wanted to congratulate Andy too. I'll miss you so much, Andy. There's no words. I'm going to bring Kelly in first. Kelly, just unmute your microphone.
Hi, everyone. I'm sorry. I think I raised my hand and it just didn't come through. So if you don't mind, I'm going to do a very quick twofer for both retirees.
Sure.
First, I'll address Linda because she was the first to be recognized. And I just want to say that I'm very sad to see Linda go. I don't know if you realize whether you like unions, you dislike unions. The job of being a union president is not easy and it is not fun. You spend all of your day pleasing just about no one and hearing about it for the rest of the day. So, you know, Linda came on a few years ago in this role. She's worked tirelessly at trying to be the best union president she can. I think she fixed a lot of things that may have been a little shaky. She worked very hard. I wish she'd stay a little bit longer, but I truly believe she deserves all the happiness in the world, and her next chapter is here, and I wish her the best in enjoying it. So thank you, Linda, for all of your work. As far as Andy goes, Andy and I've known Andy since I came into the district, you know, since she came into the district. I've been here for 25 years. But in 18 years as union president, I've worked with Andy in many capacities. And I know you'll find this hard to believe, but sometimes I'm not the easiest person to work with. Surprise. Andy has always, from day one, kept a smile on her face. I can give her the worst news in the world and she smiles and says, okay. And I can give her the best news in the world and she still smiles. Andy has been an advocate for central office. I hope she prides herself on her ability to sit in her role as an administrator, to never divulge things she should not divulge to union members or whatever, but to also at the same time never lie. That's something that's very hard to do. I think it's admirable. And Andy, that's what I miss most about you. Again, whether I like what you say or not, I know that you never lie. You may not be able to say things that you can't say because you're an administrator, but you've never lied to a teacher, to myself, or anyone else, and I respect you immensely for that. I don't think anyone on this panel has any idea what HR touches on a daily basis, how hard it is. I've worked with several HR directors in Coventry. Some were horrific, some were good. Andy's great. And if you don't have the historical knowledge that she has, your layoffs will all be messed up. Your job fairs won't happen. Your hires, your fires, your terminations, your letters, all the legal stuff that needs to be done. Andy has worked a long time to perfect that. She's phenomenal at it. And although everyone says we're going to miss her dearly, we won't know how much we miss her till she's gone. So Andy, thank you so much for your dedication, your friendship, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you.
All right, Jason, you are next.
Good evening, everyone. How are you? Andy, I wish you the best. You are going to be greatly missed. And on behalf of the maintenance and the physical plant staff, I want to thank you for always keeping us in the forefront of decisions and things that have to happen. You're always thinking about trainings and little gift cards, or you always keep our department in the forefront of your thinking, and we can't thank you enough. I'm not going to go to tears like Dave did, so I'm going to cut it as short as I can, but I just want to say what a great time I had working with you. The only good part of this is now that you're leaving, I get to move up the list, because you were like, you got some years on me. Now I'm moving up the list. So that's the only benefit that I could find. So I wish you the best, and I will miss you a great deal.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. So I don't see any more hands up, but I would love to hear from both of our honorees. Linda, is your microphone working? Doesn't look like it. So Andy, would you like to say anything to us?
Yeah, hi, everybody. Thank you so much for all your kind words and your well wishes. It's been quite a wild ride in Coventry since 1998. A lot of different superintendents, a lot of different jobs, a lot of different issues. You know, the malware. My team, Terry, Diane, Allie, such great team to work with, and what those girls did to get that payroll out on time, phenomenal. And you know, transitioning to a new payroll system in a pandemic over the phone. We had most of our trainings, really good group of people to work with. And I will miss them and everyone so much. And it's been such a nice opportunity and a full career. And it's just time to do something a little easier and spend some more time with family. So.
Woo, go mom. Yeah.
Okay, she's crying. Oh. Oh, well, I hope you come back and visit. Are you leaving soon? I didn't even know you were leaving Rhode Island. So.
Yeah, I'm just on vacation for a little bit down here, but you know, I'm not retiring until December 29th, and I told the superintendent that, you know, whomever my successor is, I'll certainly tab in when needed to help him or her out. And you know, the job fair in the fall, spring. I mean, if we get a school person, even they don't know the Coventry way, so you know, we'll get them up to speed. We'll get them all set so that it's hopefully seamless as possible.
Madam Chair, I'm actually getting a voodoo doll. Andy doesn't know this, but designed like Andy, so hoping that I can keep her around a little bit longer.
Oh my goodness. Well, I'm very happy for both of our retirees.
Can I say one thing, Madam Chair?
Yes, you may, Mr. Florio.
Go Rays. Go Tampa Bay. Go Tampa Bay Rays. Right. That's for Anthony, because Anthony works with the Rays.
Ah.
And he's a great young man.
Wonderful. All right. Well, I think we can, I don't see any other hands up, so I guess we can move on. And again, congratulations to both of you. So our next agenda item is number 7, recalls from layoff, discussion in clubs and extracurricular activities.
Yeah, I think the recalls from layoff is just.
That didn't happen.
No,
yeah.
that's just on the.
I was reading that and saying, wait a second.
No. It's on the public agenda, citizen agenda, it's just discussion, clubs and extra. Do you mind if I start that?
Yeah, that's fine. It's our reference number 2, everyone.
Yeah. So prior to us putting forth the temporary budget where we made the $1.5 million cuts, Ms. Mangiarelli and I, you know, in working with our administrators, particularly at the high school and the middle school, you know, recognizing right now that we had identified the sports that we're going to run in the fall, and we had identified other extracurricular activities that we wanted to put forward, and recognizing that we need these. You know, I watched the council meeting when they put forward a budget, and I listened to Dr. Dixon talk about voting for not just athletics or club, but voting for this robust educational system, right? That's what we're doing here. We're talking about. But unfortunately, you know, I think our hope was that a budget would come forward, a local budget was going to come forward quicker. And, you know, I remember having the conversation, and I think, you know, I don't know if it was public, but I believe it was, where, you know, we needed to put forward a budget. We had a responsibility, and we put forward that budget with cuts. Most of the cuts weren't related to sports and clubs. There was another 800,000 Chromebooks and the E-rate, which is significant, that we need for our wiring. If you go into any of our buildings and watch them even trying to do Zoom meetings within the buildings, it's challenging for a lot of reasons. So, and that's not a shot against Mr. Murphy and our tech department. It's just our infrastructure needs to be upgraded. So I know the committee, and I've said this publicly, you know, I'm in a different position where as superintendent, I have a responsibility. And I work with Ms. Mangiarelli, who's, you know, obviously everybody knows is phenomenal in terms of understanding of the budget and what we need to do. You know, and I applaud what the committee did last time. I know it's, you it's a tough decision. But what I'm going to ask tonight is, so tonight I had submitted a list to you. These are the programs that we were thinking of putting forward prior to when we sent that budget of 1.5 million cuts, right? Because it's National Junior Honor Society at the junior high, Student Council at a junior high, middle school, National Honor Society at the high school, the Student Council at the high school, and the club advisors. And let me be clear, we know that all the clubs we have, all the extracurricular activities were important. These were things that we thought that we would at least start off with if we had the funds. And that's what I put forward tonight. There's many other clubs that are important in extracurricular activities, and I know we're going to have to discuss those at some point. But what I'm going to ask the committee to do, what I'd like to do is ask you to not vote on this until after the all-day referendum, which is in a couple of weeks on the 22nd. And the reason I'm doing that is, I listened to the council meeting, I've had conversations with many individuals who are saying that this is what we do all the time. We threaten students, we hold them hostage. And I understand that. I've been in places, or I've been around a long time and I've seen that. But I can honestly tell you, and again, I can't tell you how to feel, but when we brought this forward last year, again, it was at the same time where we laid off 300 and some odd teachers, right? And we have to remember that a robust educational system is predicated on a strong academic program. And then with all the other type of activities that really take care of that entire child, the whole child. And we have a lot of opportunities so that everybody that comes to the high school, everybody that comes to the middle school, there's something for them. And our elementary schools do an incredible job looking at what the needs, what the interests are of their students and offering opportunities. When we did the budgeting last year and were faced with when the budget was shot down, we put forward a list and we did the layoffs because if the budget was level funded, there were going to be drastic cuts across the board. That's not a tactic. I think that's being transparent and honest. This year is completely different because we don't have the luxury of having a budget that's been approved for the entire year where, if you notice this year, we froze the budget early on, different things, because we were concerned, last year. This year, we're working off of 1/12 every month of last year's appropriation. So if last year's appropriation locally was $23 million, I don't know off the top of the head. I know somebody's going to say I should know that, but I don't off the top of my head. We're getting 1/12 of that per month. That's it. We're also getting 91.7% of our state aid per month. We are not able to access, funds that we may spend in May by freezing a certain line item or hoping that we'll have savings. We're not able to do that now. And that was the reason why we put forward that $1.5 million cut. I also want to remind everybody that we wrote to the Auditor General and said, we will be deficit spending this year. And my expectation was the Auditor General was going to come back and maybe demand a meeting with the school committee and the administration. But they didn't. What they said is they're going to hold off and wait to see what our local budget is, but also the state budget. Because unlike Coventry, while there are districts that are having challenges, most of the districts are being challenged with the state funding. So if the state funding holds at 91.7%, and that's what we get every month for the remainder of the year, that's over a $2 million additional cut to us. And so the Auditor General, instead of coming in and doing whatever they choose to do, right? I think that's what, and I talked to Mr. Anderson about this today, just to make sure that people understand that if the Auditor General comes in, they can do what they choose to do. We have to put together a corrective action plan, but at some point, based on the funds we have, we will run out of money. And so some of the actions, and again, these are just, you can go and research what's happening in other communities, but they can pass supplemental tax bills. They can tell us that we don't have to have certain programs or certain positions. and we can eliminate those. Now, we still have to deal with contractual ramifications. They can go to the town and say, you have X number of dollars in reserves. You know, we know we're working closely with Mr. Wazika and Mr. Arnett now. We've presented our COVID budget. There's an amount that they could support us with that won't impact the bond rating. I don't believe the Auditor General cares about that. So if the budget goes forward and doesn't pass, the Auditor General, and again, I don't have a crystal ball and I'm not a financial expert. There are other people on this panel that know much more, and that's than I do, but I can guarantee you they will come in. And so we are going to have to address all this, all these clubs, all these sports and activities. Again, the reason we did those 5 was because if we didn't do them, they were gone for the year. They wouldn't been able to participate. The league was gracious enough to expand to suspend the date, the original date they gave us in terms of making decisions. But again, I don't want to play into this idea in the community that we have the money and we're holding kids hostage. You know, as superintendent, this is not a proud moment saying what I'm saying to you. This is not a proud moment knowing that I read the sports pages and I listen to what's going on in other communities all around us. And there's a chance that we may not be able to do that if this budget fails. So again, I'm not asking you not to vote on these and approve these. I'm asking you to hold off on making decisions tonight. And again, that's just my ask. You have the right to do whatever you choose to do. I know it's not a lot of money. The amount of money for these organ is about $28,000. But I just want to be clear. When I am told by individuals that we are playing games and we're holding them hostage and we have the money, and we're going to talk about the budget next. And I hope it's an eye opener to many people. I feel we've been extremely transparent with our budget moving forward. I'll be the first to admit I need to find other ways of engaging the community. We've had 9 sessions publicly, maybe a 10th one, because we went back after we had the budget session with the town, and we had our own budget workshop just to give the opportunity for the public, again, to ask questions because we felt the process wasn't really transparent. And I struggle with that, and I'm open to suggestions, but we are not playing games. I am not trying to leverage. We do not have the funds, and if you appropriate the $28,000, it's $28,000 that we don't have. We will find, but there's a date, and I don't know what that date is. We will run out of money. And so again, I'm not, this is not a proud moment for me as superintendent, but I'm not gonna be pulled into that we're playing games. You know, my heart goes out. You know, I see that we have kids back. You go in our elementary schools, we have all of our students back 4 days a week. And I see the joy, despite the pandemic, the interaction between the students and teachers and administrators and all the support staff. And it just reminds me why we do what we do. So that's my soapbox. Again, I know there are a lot of people that want a lot of other programs brought back, and I'm not telling you that we won't do that. If we're fully appropriated, then our plan is to come, and even though we know, we talked earlier about we have numerous homeschool. I brought up, in one of our meetings, we're going to lose the funding for that. So the money we're asking for when we get into the budget, doesn't take into consideration, the loss of state revenue because of population drop. So anyways, I just am asking you to consider holding off. Again, we'll be discussing all the clubs and activities at some point. We need to, we have to be fair. I think it was, I don't know if Ms. Aronakis or somebody last time talked about, the idea of putting sports, but what about all the students? We have to have gifted programs and all these other programs. And she's absolutely right. Again, the reason I think the committee did the sports, and I applaud that, was because if you didn't take action, they would be gone. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Levis. Mr. Florio? You're on mute, Mr. Florio.
Thank you for your indulgence, Madam Chair and committee members. Yes. I am very frustrated, and I'm not frustrated with Mr. Levis or Sarah or the school committee. What I'm frustrated about is when a town council has a meeting and they say, yes, we'll approve the budget, but as a private I will do it as a council member, but as a private citizen, I'm going to vote against it. As a private citizen, I'm going to vote no, but as a council member, I'll say yes. What the hell kind of message is that sending to the public? What kind of message is that sending to our kids or their parents or their grandparents or the teachers or the teacher assistants? What kind of message is that sending? It's ridiculous. It's a question of people not doing their due diligence. And I just can't believe that as elected officials, they would say that. It's like saying, Mr. Levis, I feel your pain, but there's nothing I can do about it, and I'm going to vote no. When they don't even know, they've never even gone into the schools. They don't know what's wrong with the schools. They're not listening to Luke and his school building committee. I don't know what the heck they're doing. All I can say is, as a school committee member, it's frustrating, Madam Chair, and I can only begin to feel the frustration that our superintendent is going through, and that you're going through, Madam Chair, as the chair of the school committee, and that we're all going through when we see people in the public and they say, what the heck? What's going on? What's going to happen to my kid? What's going to happen to my disabled child? What's going to happen to the unified sports? My son has autism. What's going to happen? What are we going to do if the state comes in, takes over, eliminates programs? And is that what people really want? Is that what people want in our community? And I can tell you, Madam Chair, after speaking to people in our community, that's not what they want. It's not what our business leaders want. Our business leaders want a viable school system for our kids to go through, because if that happens, then we all prosper. But they don't see it that way. They really don't. They don't see it that way. They personalize it, and Madam Chair, all I can say is at this point in time, I am frustrated, and I'm just confused about the vote. Is the vote going to be on the 20th or the 22nd?
22nd.
The 22nd, okay? And where do we vote? That's the other question. I don't know where we're voting.
I think that'll be announced. I think
Okay.
we'll all know.
Hasn't been announced yet, and people are asking, and they want to know where we're going to vote and how we're going to vote as a school committee. That's what I've been asked, and I'm like, I'm voting in favor of the budget. That's what I'm doing, and I hope people vote in favor of this budget, because we have that. The children of this town are our future, and I just can't believe someone would say, yeah, I'll recommend you vote for the budget, but I'm voting no. It's absolutely ridiculous. So thank you, Madam
Okay.
Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Florio.
I'm done. I'm done.
Mr. Murray?
So just a couple of questions. So I'm looking at this list. I guess, what is the difference, or what is the impact if we hold off another 2 weeks? We're going to hybrid next week, correct? On middle school and high school?
Correct. Yep.
So what is the detriment to holding off the 2 weeks?
Well, a couple of things. I mean, I just want to be clear too, and I don't think I said that, you know, there's a lot of comments about stipends and all this part, and yet our teachers, and I know, I don't want to make this a union thing, because our teachers are doing what they need to do, you know, for these programs and support. They need to know at some point that the school community is going to support them, right? But they're putting 100% in. I've seen emails go out around National Honor Society. So it's not like people are holding us hostage. They've been doing a phenomenal job that will continue. What I want to get the point across is that we do not have the money. And anybody that wants to, and we can invite people in. They're welcome to, you know, I don't know how we'll do it. We'll invite them. We'll do a Zoom meeting with them, Sarah. But we can go through the budget and explain the process. But I want to be clear, when people in the community that I run into saying, you're holding kids hostage, you're playing games. I'm not playing games, right? Telling you that the state will eventually come in is not playing a game. That's the truth. That's the truth. You know, people want you to be honest. We talked before about, Kelly mentioned how loves the fact that Andy and her have those honest relationships. That's what I try to do with the community. This is not a game. You know, it's easy for people to have an entry point, you know, whenever it is, when they hear, oh, sports are not going to be funded or whatever. And that was back in June, but they come in, you know, in August, September, October. My point is that we don't have the money. You can approve it. Again, it's not money we don't have. What I'm asking is that we're going to have to take all these programs up. I know Mr. Anderson said, I think Madam Chair had asked a question about, do we need to, if we do this, do we need to fund all the sports? And he said, no, you can choose to do what, you know, you can fund these and not fund others. I think that's, you know, moving forward, we have a responsibility to address all these activities, because, you know, remember our strategic plan focuses on every single child, right? So we're not trying to just handpick the athletes right now for these 5 sports. But so I'm saying that I think it would be better for us to know where we stand after the all-day referendum. You can still make the decision, you know, you can make the decision tonight. But I just want to be clear, just like we were last time, you're making a decision with funds that we don't have. And I don't want to play into the community saying, well, you're holding hostage, you have the money, we don't have the money. And I just want to be clear. And when we get into the budget, the next agenda item, we can talk more about that. But so to me, it's a vote for this is the committee's prerogative. But I just want to be clear. It's not like we've taken 28,000 from here. You know, we have a finite amount of money every single month. And, you know, now we're going to get into the heating season, and, you know, we have some issues that we'll be talking about next school committee meeting that we're going to need for safety, taking care of our plowing our driveways and roads and things like that. So that's all I'm saying is that if we do it 2 weeks from now, it's money we may have versus money we don't have.
Okay, so I'm going to get back to my question, which was, what is the impact of if we delay this 2 weeks? So for example, is there an impact on a program that has started that if they don't get funded, this will stalemate? Or does this significantly delay a program where it becomes unbeneficial? Should we just make a decision in 3 weeks? We basically put the kibosh on a program because we're in October. So now we're looking to make this decision by November, which we're well into the year. So, and then it leads me to a second question is, I don't know if these are adjusted numbers prorated for the year, because we're already substantially into the year now.
Right, but I think we'll have to go back and look, because I believe that if there are people that are already doing the work for this, right? So I would look at those numbers as being accurate, because I can tell you our staff is not stopped. And I think as superintendent, we need to address these. I'm saying that I'm asking the committee to hold off for 2 weeks, because I think, you know, it would have been great if we had these conversations a month ago. It would have been great if we were able to, the community was able to vote on a budget. So, you know, I don't want to open a can of worms and start reading off the list of all the clubs and activities because they're all important. The reason I put this list forward was because this is what we had talked about prior to putting forward that short-term budget, things that we definitely need. We need to have those organizations. So is 2 weeks gonna put us way behind? I don't think so. I mean, other people may have different opinions, but what I'm saying is after the all-day referendum, and my plan is hopefully to have hopefully we will have a school committee meeting the following week, because I think our regular school committee meeting scheduled for the day of the all-day the referendum, the 22nd. So I think we should wait till the following week, and I think that maybe we'll talk about that later on when we schedule the meeting. But so I don't see it as having a major impact, but again, that's my opinion.
Right. Okay, so I totally get that you're advocating for us to delay 2 weeks. So I'm just gonna, I get it. Okay, very clear on that. But in order for me to make a decision, and I stand in a different role. So I have to deal also with.
What role is that though? I mean, I guess I just want to,
Well, to ask questions, Craig, to take the role of, what other role does the committee have in oversight and making sure that decisions are well thought through on behalf of the constituents, including my district. So I'm asking a very simple question. Let me put it this way. Have any of these programs started? Are there any programs on this list that are currently
I think they've all,
going?
yeah, I mean, I think in terms of, I've seen emails go back and forth. I've talked to Ms. Maycumber about the advisors. I mean, they're having programs, freshmen come in, National Honor Society. So I believe the teachers have been doing the work. Again, we haven't been in school, in the middle school and high school, but I've seen names come forward. So I don't think people are just sitting back waiting for this, for the ones we put forward.
So here's my problem. I have to justify to the people when they ask me, they're going to say, one, we've already started a school year. Why are you presenting a total amount for the semester or for the half of the school year? Two, this seems like a really low amount of money and you just approved sports. And we had a whole discussion last time about the fact that we weren't going to let activities hang out to dry. Three, what else are we doing if we're not holding it hostage by delaying a vote tonight? Because people, I'm going to have to justify the fact that I'm holding my vote, even though I didn't hold it for sports. And I'm going to hold it and say, well, we'll see what happens with the budget over, I'm looking at $23,000, but once prorated might be more towards.
They won't be prorated. They're year-long stipends. They won't be prorated. I don't believe.
We're talking about, takeovers under the Fiscal Stability Act, which there's been 4 communities taken over, and they had much more extreme circumstances than we have. My guess is that Mr. Hoyle gave us that letter because we're not the only community waiting on the feds and the state to give us a budget. And as Kathy has aptly pointed out in the past, we know we're deficit spending. We know we're in the hole. We know that even with the town money that we've asked for, which I still haven't gotten a clear answer on, when that's going to get put in for the COVID, we're still probably going to need more. So it's just in my role where I sit, I have to justify all this. If a parent asks me, why can't my kid be part of one of these activities this fall? It's because you didn't allocate $15,000 out of a $71 million budget. And I've got to be able to look them straight in the face and be able to justify that. And I know that we shouldn't be deficit spending. I know that. And no one's more of a fiscal hound than I am. But I also know the reality of the situation. And I don't want to give the impression, which is very clear through this, that we are holding this a bit hostage until after the vote. I've been very clear with people that when it comes to the spring sports, this is going to be a very difficult discussion if the budget goes down, because I know we can't afford it. But what I'm grappling with, I know what you're saying, Craig. I understand it, and I'm not saying it's irrational, but this is what I have to run through my mind on the decision-making process. And I'm just not certain that while we are deficit spending, and I said it before, if you've got $10,000 a bank account and you've got $12,000 worth of bills, doesn't make the bills go away. On the flip side of that, I also know that we've constantly said these things are important to our student. We believe in the activities, the supports of our student. And I have to ask myself, is it worth $20,000 to give that support and take the risk? Because I know that unless we get support from the state or feds, I don't care about $15,000 because we're going to be millions in the hole. And that may sound fiscally irresponsible, but that is the truth. And that's the truth for every city and town throughout this state. And it's the same thing. So I'm not going to throw council under the bus either, because they regardless of what they said, they're putting forward the budget. And I hope people go vote for it. I would say that, given that all the stuff that was tacked on in the 4%, I'm not especially confident, but we'll see. But I just, where I stand, that's the honest answer. I can't just say, we're going to bump it off. So I go back to my original question, which is, one, are these programs operating? And if they are operating, obviously people are either working for free or they're getting paid now. And if so, I see Sarah shaking her head. So Sarah, is anybody getting paid?
I think we need a moderator, Madam Chair.
Mr. Florio, you were given the opportunity to talk, and it's Mr. Murray's turn. And so I don't think, are you suggesting I should be the moderator? I am perfectly happy to let Mr. Murray continue asking his questions, like I will allow everyone on this committee to do.
Right. But I'd like your opinion on what Mr. Murray is saying.
I don't have to make that opinion until at the end of everyone's discussion.
Thank
That
you,
is the tradition on this committee. I speak last.
Okay.
I will, if after everyone's had their say, if there's still discussion, I can, chime in. But as of right now, we're going to follow our typical procedure, which is Mr. Murray has the floor. And I believe he asked a question of Mrs. Mandarelli.
That's right. Sorry, Mr.
So nobody has been paid the stipends out yet. The amounts that are listed are the annualized stipends, because we had received information that most of these had already started running, but nobody's received money yet because they haven't been paid the stipends out. And as I said in the chat, depending on if the budget gets passed, the budget that we included assumes that all clubs and all sports are going to be running. So if that gets passed and we need to go back and adjust and prorate, we will. I think where I'm struggling, to be honest with you, both from the last meeting and this meeting, is I really am not sure what I should be recommending at this point to the school committee, because we can't just look at 20,000 or 40,000 in a vacuum. Budgets don't work that way. We're trying to put in out-of-district tuitions, and I had to say I have no more money in the budget now to transfer to cover out-of-district tuitions that are coming in. And I don't even have all of the bills yet. I don't have Foster Gloucester's yet. And that always is a nice big surprise with increased applications and what we're expecting. So it's not just a matter of 40,000. It's not just a matter of 20,000. We're looking at different scenarios. Physical Plant called me today. As you know, for the past 2 years, we've had in the budget that we needed to get Physical Plant vehicles. We're scrapping several vehicles this week because they do not run anymore. And Jason reached out and said, we have got to do something because our vehicles are not going to run through the winter. So if you remember, that was one of the items on our cut sheet to try and adjust this down. We will not be able to plow if we don't look at some of these vehicles, so I did request updated quotes. So in my role, I can't just isolate and say, oh, in this one $20,000, I can sharpen my pencil and find that. In this one situation, I can find $40,000 and sharpen my pencil. We've discussed that with the enrollment between in-person and distance learning. We're anticipating significant class overages at especially the middle school with the way that the distance learning team and the in-person teams are shaping out. So we're trying to look at the big picture, and we're trying to bring forward recommendations, knowing all of those little pieces that are juggling. And I'm kind of at a loss, because I understand in some respects that, if your deficit spending and, the state aid stays at 91.7%, and that means an extra $1.9 million cut for us, what does it matter in the grand scheme of things? As a professional, I have a really hard time sitting here and saying I'm okay with that. that's not my job to bring forward. So I've said, you know, whatever the school committee decides, we will do, but I do feel like it's our responsibility to bring it forward to caution the role that we're going down. So I think the request to wait until this got, you know, through the voters was to say, maybe we can bring back more, maybe we'll be able to adjust more. It's a matter of timing. And I don't know if there's anything that's going to be so detrimental that would happen with these programs within 2 weeks. But I'm a little bit uncomfortable with how things are going right now, because it's not a good position to be put in to say, yes, let's go and deficit spend. I'm just not exactly sure how to proceed. So I understand the concerns and sentiments. And again, I live here, it's my kid's school district. But this is a tough position to be put in, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and I want to be crystal clear, because this goes into you asked about our role in the school committee. Sarah, it is not your role to recommend that. It is your role to tell us what we should do, right? To tell us what the financial realities are. That is what I expect of the administration. I expect them to give me a clear answer on where we stand and advocate on that behalf. I'm not asking it. It's our role to weigh that against the community temperature and the realities of the situation with an upcoming budget vote, knowing that I want it to pass too. Part of that calculation, even with sports, laying it on the table, is that we want support of those parents. Cutting programs is not very popular with parents. Cutting programs is not the way you build up a school district and show that you're providing for your students. So that is the role of us, where we have to weigh that against the data that you give us very aptly to weigh against. I don't expect that of you. That is not your role. And so if there's any concern on that, you know, at least my view of it isn't. But I go through a decision-making process. I have to. It's not as clear as just the budget says this, because I have to also look as a school committee member what my constituents' needs are, what the students' needs are, and weigh that also against, you know, I know it's not just 15,000. I know that. And when but I do have to weigh that when on the public perception of, are we running schools adequately if we can't afford the $15,000? Because as a parent, I would be saying that. Like, how can you not afford this? If you're saying it's so important and it's part of our plan of the whole student, then what makes vehicles more important than my student? And I'm not saying physical plant vehicles are not important, but I'm just, I know that that's not always a popular way of going about things, and I respect Dave's, maybe counter to that, but I go through things in a very analytical way, and that's just how I am. So the reason I asked is, if it's critical, then I would be in more support of passing it now. If it is not critical, and it was a very simple question to begin with, if there is no detrimental effect for us delaying this, I am fine with delaying it. I think you've laid out a very good argument. But also, I think it's important to lay that argument out to the public, because if I'm sitting here in the crowd and I'm thinking, why would they be doing this? Are they holding us hostage? I want a real answer on why that isn't the case. And it's not just words. You've laid it out. We're in a very tough budget scenario. So I guess what I'm hearing, if I'm not, and I'll leave this because I'm very taking up more time than I should on this, is that there will be no substantial detrimental effect to these programs beyond what's already been damaged by extending this into the school year. Is that correct?
Yeah,
if we delay this vote.
Again, let me just say that I appreciate all, your perspective and point of view. The teachers could say, we're not going to do this anymore. I don't believe they will, but I'm not saying that we're not going to bring this back. I think I said I'd like to bring this back right after, and I agree with you. Like, I think Ms. Padno and I have had conversations, other school committee members, about we need National Honor Society. We need all these things, and I will strongly advocate for them. I'm just saying, again, maybe I wasn't clear with Sarah. Once the vote happens, we have all these other programs that are just as important. Assuming the budget passes, we can bring so many more things back. And that's the whole idea. It's not trying to stretch this. But I did want to be clear that we don't have the money. And I know you were saying about, from the consumer perspective, or, the taxpayer, I can't believe they don't have the $15,000 or $28,000. But I think Sarah explained that much better than obviously I did. So my assumption is the teachers will support, but they also need to know that we're going to bring this back to the table, as well as other hopefully other programs that we have to bring back to the table. The reason we did sports, to me, is very clear. If you didn't make that decision that night, they wouldn't be operating at all. Schedules were going out. So when we compare the two, I look at them, they're completely different scenarios.
And this decision would be easier for me, honestly, if we had some clarity on the COVID funding from the town side. If we were already allocated that money and the budget went down, at least we had some backup. But we have neither right now. So,
Right.
I know that hasn't been part of the mix, but it's part of my decision thinking too. So I appreciate the time, Madam Chair, I really do. So I'll let this move on.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Murray. Mrs. Kalunian?
Okay, looking at some of these, I need to ask this question because I don't know if you answered Luke's question. The National Honor Society and the Junior Honor Society, if they don't start now, is it detrimental to them being able to be on the society for this year?
Well, I mean, if they weren't going to run, most definitely. I mean, the reason we talked about this early on was because this is important. I mean, everything's important, but for kids going to college and, these are all important. For the high school to operate the way they do, having student council at the middle school and the high school and the class advisors is also crucial. I don't believe people are not doing that. They need to know that a commitment from me is that we're going to bring this back to the table. All I was asking, and again, it's just an ask. I will fully support whatever decision and I'm not trying to set up the committee like going against me. I will support. I just feel that if we waited until the all-day referendum, we can have a much more, hopefully, fruitful conversation about all of our programs. Because again, I don't want to say for some people, these aren't important. There's other things that are so much more important. I can justify the sports piece, what we did, because it was either do them or nothing's gonna, either we reinstate them, the committee does, or they're not gonna run. So again, I don't want to say that I can't expect teachers to do what they're doing without being compensated. I don't think that's expected of anybody in terms of knowing that, this is our responsibility, but I know that they're working their butts off and that they're doing this work. And so I'm not saying we're not going to do this. I was just asking, again, to hold off until after the all-day referendum. I'm not trying to hold it hostage because we're going to bring these back to the table and have that conversation. But again, if the committee wants to do it tonight, then by all means, I just felt it's important for me to express. And again, Sarah did it so much more articulate than I did.
Well, that was just why, and then Mr. Murray also brought up another point, is why would we pay an annual stipend if they haven't started yet? So
But they
what
have
if
started.
they start in November, December? So
But that's the point. I think what I'm saying, and I guess I'm not clear, is teachers, I've already seen them, and I think Sarah said it too, they're doing this work, right? When they come in, the students come in, next week, I mean, they've already started with the Honor Society. I've seen the names and lists, approval. So I don't want you to,
okay, so basically, what you're saying is that, they're basically doing this and.
Correct.
And then, okay. And so I get that.
Yeah, nobody's reached out to me and said, Mr. Levis, I want my stipend for doing this. But I'm on all the listservs. I see the emails going back and forth. I see the work that's being done. I know Ms. Maycumber at the high school, these, bringing students in and having class advisors is so crucial. Doing that work even virtually, we talked about that. So our teachers have been doing the work. This isn't about them coming to me and pressuring. This is about, we know these are important. We know that we need to have these programs. Again, I am just asking, I was asking does it make sense to hold off?
And I just want to get some clarity because, I was listening to what Mr. Murray was saying, and believe it or not, I had the same questions. It's like, well, will it be detrimental to the students if they don't get in the National Honor Society?
Right.
So, hearing that, And I do understand why we brought back sports when we did. And you know, and I understand that this is just a handful. There are so many more clubs, and I know that, you know, how can we pick this many over the others? And so maybe it would be best to hold off. But again, like I felt the same way as Mr. Murray. When you first said it, I was like, well, you know, it does seem like you're holding it hostage because you did sports because you had to, and then, you know, but
Right.
now explaining it, knowing that there's still going on, and if this budget passes, this is another question. If this budget passes, are we going to be able to bring back the other activities?
Well, I think some of the activities won't be coming back
Right.
because they've been suspended, unless like middle school fall sports, unless they decide to do something in the spring. I haven't heard that. I mean, there are some after-school activities we're just not going to be doing because right now we want our schools, kids are coming to school, but our schools are going to close. We want to get students home. We don't want to, especially at the elementary school, we don't want to mix our quote stable pods. And so there will be some that won't be coming back, but it's because of the conditions, not because it's not because of funding.
No, and that's what, you know, I just wanted to know, anything that can come back, we'll be able to if we have the money.
Well, right, right. And those are conversations again, and you'll open this up to the public. There are going to be people, individuals that may disagree with what I'm saying. Again, the reason we brought these forward, we planned on funding these months ago, was when we knew that there were going to be just certain fall sports. And then we also know that you need a National Honor Society. You know, we need the student council. We need the class advisors. But, you know, that's a judgment call that maybe, you know, administrators make or I make. Again, I'm not speaking for everybody, but we felt at least let's get those things funded. But then when we had to put forward the temporary budget, it all was cut. So again, you know.
Okay, I think I beat that dead horse. We'll go on to James.
All right, thank you. Mr. Pearson?
I think everyone already asked any question that I might have thought of. So understanding the impact and understanding the logic behind asking us to postpone this vote, I think I would support postponing this vote until after the results of the all-day referendum are known. That's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pearson. I have to agree with the thought that we can postpone this vote, mainly because I think it's the prudent thing to do. And we know that these are extremely important, and there are so many other things that are extremely important as well. But I do think we made the right decision with the fall sports because we had a deadline. The fact that, you know, we're hopeful the budget will pass. Students haven't been told, teachers haven't been told, okay, this can't run. It's off the table because we're still waiting for the budget. Even the Auditor General said, we're not going to move on Coventry until you have at least a local budget. And then we'll look to see what your action plan is to try to come to a budget that balances. So I'm okay with this ask by the superintendent, because it's not like I'm saying, okay, there's not going to be a National Honor Society at the high school this year. I don't believe that'll happen. And I am going to remain faithful and hopeful that this community will come out and support schools. So I will support this ask. Mr. Florio, I saw your hand up. Did you have something else to say?
Yeah, Madam Chair. Mr. Murray, I'm sorry for interrupting you. Ms. Mangiarelli, sorry for interrupting you as well. And thank you, Madam Chair. I agree with you. If this budget does not pass, it's not good for us. But I agree with you all that we just wait till the budget referendum outcome, and then then a decision could be made as to as to funding and all programs. And Thank you, Mrs. Mangarelli. You made a very good presentation. So did you, Mr. Murray. And thank you, Madam Chair. That's what I was waiting to hear. So,
All
and
right.
thank you, Donna. You were awesome, and James, you were awesome too. Thank you.
Madam Chair, can I make
Yes.
one statement? Just that
Sure.
even if, I mean, again, it's obviously it would be the committee's decision, but even if the budget was to fail, I think and again, I don't want to cherry pick different programs, but I feel that, there's some decisions we're going to have to make, tough decisions, like around National Honor Society, these other programs. And again, the community has input, and obviously the committee will make the final decision, but I feel that I don't want to misrepresent that. I feel like the programs that we talked about tonight, we need to have, even if we don't have the funds. And I don't know how we do that. And again, I'm not trying to stress Ms. Mangarelli out any more than I do on a typical day, but, so it's not about whether or not we're going to have these programs that we put forward. I think it's for the high school to function, the middle school, it's necessary. And I'm sure people will have other thoughts about other programs, but it really is just about, having a better idea instead of putting forward a few programs, but having a better idea in a couple of weeks. And I would expect that we take this up again and hopefully make an affirmative decision. But I think, that's the whole idea of me coming and asking you. I think the conversation that we had it was very clarifying, and I appreciate that. So, I look at things through my lens. It doesn't mean my lens is always the best lens by any means. So I appreciate everybody's conversation.
Thank you, Mr. Levis. Yeah, after all these years, I think my lens is scratched. But anyway.
Definitely.
This wasn't a call for a vote. It was just a discussion, so I don't have to call for a motion. But I don't see any hands up, Mr. Murphy. But the public, one just went up. So if you could bring that person in, I'd be grateful.
Kelly, you're up. If you just state your name and address for the record.
Sure. Kelly Aronakis, 18 Ironwood Drive. I just want to say that as the school committee considers things, obviously last week I was a little bit frustrated that the school committee was very willing to deficit spend, knowing that's not your role, that you're warned by the attorney not to. Ms. Mangarelli, Mr. Levis. And I'm looking at deficit spending again. And I don't know if you know the entirety of what you've cut. So as an educator, I'm frustrated. So for example, today, I have several students, while teaching them, continuously get knocked off because our Chromebooks are extremely old. They cannot handle the streaming that we're doing. So my student can't be on a Google Meet with me and open the Nearpod activity. They get kicked off. They get frustrated. I had 3 crying students today, but it's okay. We don't have the technology. I think we can all anticipate it. Sometime this year, we're all going to be back home for a period of time. Things are going to get worse. We're seeing it happening at other schools. You're not looking at the technology needs. Kids aren't getting their education. They can't try to be on a meeting with their teacher for an hour and get kicked off 4 times. They're crying because they're frustrated. I met with staff today, the union president, and as we now have COVID positive tests that are coming up for students, I have the staff at BlackRock very upset that they don't have a nighttime custodian. That building's not getting cleaned in the evening. So I get very frustrated that I believe, you can get angry for me for saying this, but one thing I never do is worry about my political future. I get very frustrated that we from a political where the squeaky wheel gets the grease, and it is not necessarily what's in the best interest of education. So when you cut teachers, okay, we don't have the money. When you cut this, we don't have the money. But now we're looking at things that are not educationally sound. Because I believe when you get pressure, you prioritize, and you don't prioritize what you were appointed to do. So I'm going to speak for the kids and for the education that you're letting Chromebooks slide. You're letting cleaning of buildings slide. You have more COVID positive tests coming up. And you're looking at something because community members are upset. Well, community members are going to get more upset when more kids test positive. Community members are getting upset with their teachers because their kids can't stay on the meets that they have with them. So I just ask that you look at that whole list of what you've cut and don't prioritize by the squeaky wheel getting the grease because you've had 3 or 4 parent complaints. Prioritize what you were elected to do. Maintain your schools, maintain the education, maintain the extracurricular. It's all one big piece. So I'm sorry for my frustration, but I think it needs to be said that you can't keep cherry picking and forget what's off the table, because what's off the table sometimes is more important than what you're putting back on the table. So I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Kelly. Are there any other attendees with their hands up? I don't see any.
There are no other hands.
Okay. Well, I think that discussion was valuable. Moving on to number 8, which is the FY21 budget and financial town meeting discussion. It was our reference number 3, which is the new budget. Mr. Levis, did you want to start this?
Just quickly, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Mangiarelli, but you know, I don't want to leave, you know, this conversation for 1 minute thinking that we're, you know, if the budget fails on the 22nd, and if the state aid is continued to cut, that we will be okay and that somebody will not intervene. I think that's a misnomer, that there will be intervention. We will run out of money, and that, you know, and yet we still have to run schools. So I just want to be clear about that, you know, and I'm not, you know, that I believe will come to fruition. I hope it doesn't. And, you know, Kelly brought up a lot of good points. I don't believe that we have buildings that are not being cleaned at night. I just want to say that we may not have a custodian, but they need to be cleaned. But we talk about the Chromebooks. We talk about all these things. We know that. We know that we cut E-rate, and we're trying to find some creative ways that we can go back and purchase some of these things and get access. I remember Mr. Murray, you know, like really having a hard time with that cut. And we hear this loud and clear. You know, we know this. And so, you know, these are, you know, not, and it has nothing to do with even the pandemic piece. You know, like there's been a lot of challenges we've faced. If everything was, there was no COVID-19. This just has really increased the challenges and definitely financially. So, you know, I just want to thank Sarah for putting together the budget. Again, I think she'll talk more about why we have this budget, why we've continued to put forward a pre-COVID budget. I think, you know, and so I'll turn that over to Sarah.
So just in the anticipation of the next meeting coming up, I just wanted to update the budget a little bit. It's somewhat difficult at this point. We're already into the year, so some of our estimates are becoming more known as we continue out. It's slightly difficult because the town started to advertise already. So I had to keep the bottom line actually as close to what we had projected from the beginning. But there are some areas that are shuffling, and I just wanted to update some of them, and I'll share where I'm concerned about numbers coming in, even though this would be ultimately the budget that we would bring forward. So just on the summary page, you know, obviously the state aid is a huge factor. If we stayed at 91.7%, that's an additional 1.95 million that would be cut. The Medicaid money, I'm concerned just with the way that some of the services are going and making sure that that gets tracked. I'm a little nervous that that estimate is also high. So I'm concerned that some of the Medicaid eligible services that typically happen might not be happening and tracked in the same extent. And also we did receive some guidance about changing in Medicaid funding. So I need to vet that a little bit further. Also building rentals, that's going down because we won't be renting out our facilities at all. So those are the big areas of concern on the revenue side. From the expense side, you know, I mentioned out of district tuitions, that is always a wild card. You know, if you scroll through the budget, the tuition lines that you see are updated for all the ones that we've received so far. Again, special ed can change, you know, day to day. We think that's pretty well stabilize it, the out of district tuitions. Those can be a little bit of a wild card because we don't always necessarily receive those applications in advance. So we think that we know who's going, and then we get the list of kids, and that's a little bit different. So some of the big districts, I haven't received those invoices yet, and I'm nervous. And if you scroll through, you'll see that even year over year, with the ones that I have updated, they've all gone up this year. So Cumberland, I believe Charahoe went up, Exeter West Greenwich went up again. So the out of district tuition is, unfortunately, a side effect of some of our own budgetary issues that we're facing here. So the purchase services is definitely a wild card. I mentioned earlier the teaching salaries, that could be a concern just based on the number of in-person versus distance learning and how we'll need to handle that. Everything else we're trying to keep a cap on. And again, this is pre any cuts. So this assumes vehicles are back in. This assumes that the Chromebook one-to-one replacement is back in. This assumes that we can move forward with some of the E-rate network funding. So hopefully all of that will come through. I did add a second page, summary page that has the federal COVID funds, as well as I added in the school lunch. So we know that school lunch has been a struggle for years, and it's usually because it's in a different fund. It comes up in conversation, but it's not usually added in. We slowly phased in school lunch and staffing to keep labor costs, lower and represent the number of meals that were actually being served in the schools. We didn't need a full school lunch staff if we didn't have a full school district back. So we did try and slow some of those costs down. Breakfast and lunch is free for all students, regardless of economic status, through December 31st. So we were hoping that as we get back in, our numbers will increase. It is a grab and go style lunch though, so there's not as many options, and it's not a hot lunch either. But we are still somewhat struggling there. So that 157,000 is probably a best case scenario. I'm waiting for updated projections from Sodexo. You'll also notice that on the school carryover, I did actually increase that back up. So we are closing out FY20 and we have a lot of side funds to go through. And yes, still ransomware that we are going through. I mean, if this is definitely a bigger level of detail that we have to look, because we just see some transactions that aren't quite showing up how we thought. So as numbers change, I increased that carryover from FY20 to see what I think it's actually going to be at. And that ultimately drops what our ask of the town would be. Again, this is all a wild card because we're really just using our best estimates, but I am trying to be as accurate as possible as we get further along in closing out our books. So that is just an additional summary, and then it's all really the line item detail that we can go through. I pulled out things like summer school transportation. That was actually shifted in. We shifted that because we had to expand the IXL program actually from the summer on. So instead of doing summer transportation, we shifted that so that it could help cover the summer academic side of it. So that's all represented in the budget detail. So, but for the most part, it's similar to what we had presented before, just a little bit more of a true up of lines where I could true up.
Okay, thank you so much, Mrs. Mingerelli. Okay, I guess we can go down the line. Mr. Florio, do you have any questions or comments about a budget presentation?
No, Madam Chair. I'm just, Ms. Mangiarelli, it must be awful difficult to try to figure out a budget when you don't have a budget from last year for this year. And we've been working on it for over a year. So it's, here we go again. And I hope all your work is not for naught next year. I really do. I hope we can come up with a reasonable budget from a reasonable council, and maybe we can get what we really need instead of doing the best with the least. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Florio. Mr. Murray.
Thanks for the breakdown, Sarah. With regard to the previous conversation on Chromebooks, if memory serves me, we were purchasing Chromebooks under the ESSER funds. Was that correct? You did some money shift on that?
So we were purchasing, with the ESSER funds, we were purchasing Chromebooks for the elementary grades because they weren't one-to-one. So what was in this budget was the third round of financing for grades 6 through 12 for their Chromebooks.
Gotcha. All right, well, that makes sense. And it's also important to note on the previous conversation, it's not the fact that we're cutting things, it's the fact that we're not able to include them. So there's a big difference. You know, we didn't choose to cut a budget. It got cut for us. So I just want to make that clear because we did not cut out the Chromebooks. We did not cut out the services this year. We had a pre-COVID budget that we felt was fiscally sound and we stood behind that. So as a school committee, I felt like we did our job. We advocated for it. It just didn't pan out. And so here we are. I guess the good point is, Sarah, I mean, we're so far into the year, pretty soon to just be basing things on actuals, not projected, which is terrible to say, considering we're gonna have to formulate fiscal year 21 now, come December, right? I noticed in here custodial, there was a big reduction. Was that just a line shift to, there was janitorial? Was that just a line shift to COVID expenses? It was like 120, and now I'm having a hard time finding it. I apologize.
Are you looking at an expense line, janitorial expense?
Yes.
Yes, I think so. So we used to budget all of the janitorial expense at like the physical plant level. So what we did this year is we pushed it out into the schools. So if you went through each school line, you'd see a bigger budget in the custodial line at the schools.
Gotcha. Going back to a previous conversation, we still have this 1.4. I know we've harped on it tonight. Have you gotten any indication on the 1.4 that's included in here?
No, none.
So here's the, you know, and this goes back to the previous discussion again, and I'll bring this into the budget. And the current agenda item is what's also difficult is even if we get the budget passed, and I know everyone in the community wants us to bring back everything. To Kelly's point, the most prudent thing to do is bring back the essentials, which I would include the E-rate program, because you know I've harped on that. The very difficult thing we're gonna have to do is, if we don't get the 1.4, we still don't have clarity, correct? So, and you've aptly included that in this breakdown. So I'm still a little bit hedgy. My understanding in the previous conversation was that there was some discussions had that the town was going to move forward with a fund balance transfer, or at least a line of credit. Was that your understanding when you left those meetings?
So that was my understanding, but I did, when I was told the date of October 20th and the 22nd for the next financial town meeting, I did ask about that. And it was just that the focus was on the budget, on the FTM. So it's still been pretty silent on COVID response. And, you know, I do want to know other districts have asked their council for fund balance just to cover the state aid. We haven't hit that issue yet, but as you know, now that we have a bigger teaching staff, you know, back, that started really at the beginning of September, and we start paying all of our grant funds out. We have to pay those out in advance, and we can't remit for reimbursement until the quarter is over. So, you know, we're carrying those salaries for 3 months. So we are gonna, you know, cash flow is gonna get tighter and tighter as we go along, because we're not receiving, you know, a portion of that state aid. So other districts may not have necessarily gone to them for full COVID amounts, but they're definitely going up to them for state aid to backfill that amount.
Yeah, good point. And if we don't get a budget passed, we're still going to stick on 1/12, which means we can't tap future budget money to backfill, at least in the short term. So it's going to be a problem. Yeah, we're in a real pickle here. Give us that. This is a tough year. I hope the community completely understands this. I don't know if they do, but you know, the more I look at this, the more I realize that if the budget does not pass, there's going to be some pain ahead. There's no way around it. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Murray. Mrs. Colunian?
Yeah, I just want to start out by saying I'm a little disappointed that we don't have as many people attending the meeting this week as we have in prior weeks when, you know, I see two things that have to happen here. We have to get out in a grassroots and say, you know, get people to vote for the budget. And then we also have to get them to tell their councilmen to release the COVID money so that we're not in a deficit even if the budget passes. Sarah, you did a great job. You know, I mean, you do a great job with what you're given, and I got to give you a lot of credit. But that's my soapbox, I should say, is that, you know, I agree with Kelly. You know, we need everything. Unfortunately, you know, the schools are important to a town, and I'm just a little frustrated myself over the fact that, you know, they haven't. You've asked about and I mean, I was there in several meetings where they promised money from the rainy day fund for the COVID. So I'm a little frustrated myself that, you know, you've asked for it and they basically have been pushing you off, kicking it down the road. So that's all I have to say.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Colonian. And finally, Mr. Pearson?
Thank you for the updates. I think all the questions have been asked, so I don't have any further questions at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Pearson. Again, thank you, Sarah. As always, a very thorough job when I was, you know, going over this budget today. I want to cry sometimes when I see, you know, the cuts that, you know, you recommended X and now you're recommending Y, and just to try to squeeze as much to get to the numbers that we're going to be voting on. And I appreciate all that hard work. I am hopeful. I think there are people on the council like Ann Dixon, who is very much aware that we're going to need money from the rainy day fund. But I do think their focus right now is getting the budget passed. And once that happens, then we'll have a clearer idea probably, because I think part of the rainy day fund was we would have expenses, we would bill them, and then they would, you know, reimburse us, or maybe we'd just send the bills to them. I'm not sure how it'll work out, but I don't think that the whole council will forget that. I do not think Mr. Arnett will forget it, or our interim town manager, or Ann Dixon. I can't speak for the rest of the council, but I know for a fact that she's not going to let this go, and she realizes the complete need for the COVID, the 1.5. So I think the first bridge we have to go over is to get the budget passed. And I am very hopeful that this community goes out and votes and supports it. And then we'll go back to the drawing board again and try to figure out what can be restored and what can't be restored. And if that doesn't happen, I think Mr. Levis is correct. We will be in very bad. The rainy day fund will not be able to pull us out of this deficit. And so the state will come in. And I just hope that the community realizes that if that happens, they should do their homework and look at East Providence, look at Central Falls, and see the things that happen to those communities. And it will happen here in Coventry. And we will not be in control of what we cut and what we restore. We will be told to do that. And for all those citizens who think, well, great, we won't have to pay any more taxes, that won't be true either, because the Auditor General can decide that we have not been paying our fair share of what the community can afford, and they just will pass a supplemental tax on us. So if people want to have their freedom to be able to choose what is happening in our schools, then I think they need to go out and support the budget and not let this happen and have that part of our fate. That's it from me. I don't see any hands up, Mr. Murphy.
No hands up.
Okay. And I guess we can move on. I think everybody has said their say. So, I guess I think we did talk about the dates. Mr. Superintendent, you're going to talk about that in your report, so I won't bring that up. So I guess we can move on to agenda item number 9, which is the school building stage 2 application update. And I believe that is Mr. Murray. Do you have an update for us?
Can you see my screen with the schedule on it?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So I'll give a brief update on where we're at as the building committee. We're chugging along. As many of you know, we're working on the stage 2 RIDE effort. We just had a building committee meeting last week, and trying to get my dates correct. But on the 29th, as you can see on the schedule here, we are on schedule. We had a building tour on the 26th, which I think was very successful. I want to thank the administration for coordinating the video for that. We have video on the YouTube site of the walkthrough, which was 4 hours on a Saturday, to go through the middle schools, the Hopkins Hill Elementary School, and the high school to look at some representative examples of some of the issues that we're dealing with as a building committee. So I thought it went very well. The architect from Studio Jade was very educational as we walked through and saw some of the issues, and he was able to explain that not only the physical condition of the facilities, but the educational deficiencies that are occurring due to lack of square footage, the layouts, some of just the buildings are 50, 60, 70 years old. So they just don't fit today's format for education. Coming out of that meeting, we did have a building committee meeting last week, which again, I think was very fruitful. As you know, we have a very robust building committee. We had some options, an additional 3 options that were presented for the middle school, because right now we're focusing on the middle school as the heavy lift. And that's what the building committee had voted on, that we were going to focus on the middle school as a major renovation, and then focus on priority 1s at the elementary schools and the high school. Mainly because the middle school is our transition. We know that building's old, has had issues with the past additions that come up. We all know the many issues related to mold, moisture, just general HVAC, et cetera, et cetera. So some of the building concepts we looked at, and we can share those later, were potentially adding on a substantial 3-story structure onto the middle school, really doing a gut out renovation of the facility, making it look new, completely redoing the site layout. It is not what we've done in the past, which is just a kind of what I call a slap-on addition to fulfill the capacity requirements. This is a complete mind shift in how we situate the education facility, bringing in the 21st century learning. So we've been going through those options. We now have 8 options on the table. We got some really good feedback from the committee, and we're going to continue to work through those iterations. Again, this isn't committing us to anything. The committee has decided to focus on the middle school. We're going to work through those iterations to get to a basic concept so we can refine cost and see what that looks like. And then we have to submit a stage 2 that's fairly thorough to RIDE. Along those lines, I have been in contact with RIDE on several occasions. They do want to schedule a tour. I haven't gotten back with them. I sent them an email earlier this week, and I'm hoping that they'll get back to me with a schedule of when they can accommodate the building tour, which I originally had scheduled for next week, the 13th on the schedule. But it looks like that's going to get pushed. So which is fine. We have some time, but not too much. The time seems to be ticking by quickly here. So my hope is that RIDE will come to the table. Apparently, we're the first one. We're the lucky recipients of the post-COVID award. So they haven't done a building tour since COVID hit. So they're not sure the format that they would like to use for it. But they typically like to visit the buildings, talk to the building committee, and kind of go through things. So we do have that on the schedule. The structural analysis was nearing completion. So I expect a report fairly soon on that will be presented to the building committee. So next steps, I had mentioned the ride tour. We're going to have some additional meetings to go through the multiple iterations we have, not only on the middle school, but we also want to identify and get a better understanding of the priority ones at some of the other schools. We had input from the building committee about how we present some of those iterations in advance to the committee to be more productive. And we've also had some good input about creating a focus group at the middle school, which I have struggled with my own schedule the past week with my day job. But I have to get with the building principal, Joe Lucian, at the middle school to create some sort of focus group of teachers and staff to start looking at the iterations that we're looking at as a building committee to get their input on what they'd like to see and whether what we're looking at really works as we refine them down. So the short of it is we're plugging along, we're sticking to schedule. I'm giving regular updates to council. I gave my second update about a week and a half ago to council. Going to continue to try to keep them in the loop. And then after the election, we do have a presentation scheduled near the end of November for the new council, just to remind everybody to get the new council, whoever's remaining, and the new members into the loop rather quickly, because we're shooting for February 15th for the stage 2 submission. All this is happening rather quickly, even though it seems like a long time. The days tick by. So, does anybody have any questions or additions to that? I know Kathy, you're on the building committee with me. So feel free.
I don't have any questions.
Any questions from the school committee on where we're at? And Kathy, you can go through if you want.
Mr. Florio, anything for Mr. Murray?
Luke, how does the council receive you during these meetings that you had at the council meetings? Are they listed?
I would hope they are. I think they are. I think there's mixed emotions on this whole effort, right? It's coming at a very difficult time. We know that. We're still in the middle of budget, and we're talking about infrastructure. I will say in the community, I've heard a lot more support for infrastructure. So it always seems that when you talk about operational budgets, it's more of a fight. But when most people realize that our schools are aging out, they realize that they want to see something for their money. And so that's where I see the strategic advantage here. Also with COVID, we have had air quality issues. A lot of these building issues have come to light. So I think we're bent there a little bit, realizing that this issue isn't going to go away. COVID just highlighted what we already knew. So what may appear as a detriment may benefit us and as we continue on in this effort, and I'm hoping that's the case.
Great, thank you.
I'm not going to ask you, Mr. Murray. Mrs. Colonian?
No, I don't have any questions. Thanks for the update, Luke.
No problem.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Pearson?
No, thank you for the update. Appreciate being kept in the loop on this. No real questions at this time. Looking forward to seeing how this progresses.
Okay.
Great, thank you, Mr. Pearson. I guess that's it, unless I don't see any
Madam
hands
Chair,
up.
can I just
Oh,
say,
yeah, sorry.
I watched the meetings that Mr. Murray's presented, and I have to say that, I think the council has been receptive. I mean, obviously I can't get inside of anybody's head, but just in terms of watching the interaction, they seem to be receptive. They thank, the town council president had, thank Mr. Murray for coming and presenting. So, I think that the key is doing exactly what the building committee said they were going to do, and being transparent and being, giving the information. And Mr. Murray, I don't think mentioned, but there was a phenomenal lot of feedback about the tour that we had at the building, the middle school, and Hopkins Hill in the high school. And I had many people reach out to me and during it, watching it, I guess on it was being streamed on Zoom, and just felt it was very informative in the conversation in the tour. So I know it was 4 hours, so I'm sure people, jumped on, jumped off, but I think the progress and the consistency that's taking place despite the challenging times is been very, what's the word I'm looking for? Just very, very timely. Like I said, I think the way it's being presented to the community is taking in consideration the times that we're going through, but also stressing the need and the value. And I think, Mr. Murray and the building committee's done an excellent job with that.
Thank you, Mr. Levis. And thank you, Mr. Murray. I think you've been an excellent chair, and your co-chair as well, have done some really phenomenal work. And I think the building committee in general, the members are very appreciative that you and several others have kept us organized. That schedule is great. It keeps you on task. So it's been a very organized committee to be on. So I thank you for that hard work. Okay, then I think we can move to number 10, which is the substitute rate for nurses, teacher assistants, our discussion and approval. Mr. Levis, did you want to start that?
Sure. I'm going to ask
number 5.
I'm going to ask Mr. Murphy if he can put on, I think the first reference with the yellow highlight. And while he's doing that, I just want to thank the committee. I know we had a good conversation about the sub teacher rates, but it's made a huge difference in terms of us getting applicants. And every day we have individuals who are coming, meeting with Ms. Fallon and being approved as daily sub teachers, and we desperately need them. I'll give you an example today. Just in Western Coventry, they were extremely short. Ms. Anzalone with the other elementary principals, they collaborated, were able to provide coverage. But without these daily subs, we would be, and again, we're just starting and we don't have our grade 7 through 12 back. So I want to thank the committee for that. So tonight we're going to talk about teaching assistants and sub nurses. In terms of our teaching assistants, we still struggle with those individuals. We have some subs right now that are not interested in working. And you look at our rate, and I believe that is $11.50 minimum wage now in Rhode Island?
Yes.
I believe it is. So
October 1st.
So while we've and I've said before that the addressing the subs right now for our building based or our daily subs, teaching subs, we've reached out and identified a whole additional pool of individuals, and every day we have more individuals coming on board. And next meeting I'll be able to give you probably a good count in terms of how many we've been able to add. We desperately need that, but we still struggle with teaching assistants. And I'll get into the return to school and reentry planning next when we talk about just dealing with COVID and this whole contact tracing process. But we've had situations where, entire, specialized program, everybody has to go out, the subs have to go, the teaching assistants, and, we really need to take the same approach with our teaching assistants that we did. And, and again, I understand that there's, we saw what Warwick did. If you saw the news the other night, how they're paying their certified teachers now, I believe it's $225. They're paying the subs like we did $150 a day. However, after 10 days, they're going to pay them $175. And so there is that where people are going to throw money at this, but we have to compete. Without the bodies in front of our students, we will not be able to stay open. And I'm really concerned about a teaching assistant. So our request is to raise that from $11.50 an hour to $15 an hour. You can see Charahoe's at 15, East Greenwich, which is our neighbor, is above 15. And we're really struggling with this group of employees that we need to provide coverage. So we're asking that to go to $15. And then I'm going to talk about the nurses. I think one thing that's important to know about sub-nurses is that often we have to use an agency, and agencies can charge between 75 and 95, maybe more an hour. So we're looking at daily rates here. Currently, we are paying $175 a day. We'd like to increase it to $225 a day. You can see Charahoe's at $252 a day. Foster's $250 a day. Warwick's at $250 a day. And again, I want to stress that we often pay much more than that because we're using agencies. The other part is that, Ms. Mandrelli and I had a conversation today that by hiring RNs, are we going to need our school nurse, will we need a sub? And again, I'll talk a little bit more about that when we get into the next agenda item, but our nurses are completely inundated. It just takes one presumptive case. And we've had nurses, our school nurse teachers that have been dealing with a situation on and off that's carried over into the second day. 5:30 in the morning, they're getting a phone call. I've been on the phone with them at 10 o'clock at night. So, when we had talked before about even adding the RNs to our buildings, if you see what's going on in our schools and going to be going on in every district, we definitely need to have subs available for our school nurse teachers, and if a school nurse teacher goes out, I don't know what we're going to do. Honestly, I don't see how we can keep a building open if we don't have nursing in our buildings. If you see what's going on today. And so, Mr. Murphy, can you put up the next? So again, this is the original sheet that we presented before. We're asking to go from $175 a day to $225 a day for our school nurse teacher subs. And we're asking to go to $15 an hour for our teaching assistants. These are both crucial areas. Again, if we can't get our school nurse teacher sub, then we have to use an agency if we can get an agency, and it can cost us, multiples of the 200 and some odd dollars a day, $225 a day. And we've paid that before because we need to have coverage. There were days where nurses help out and cover a building, but we cannot continue to do that. We need to make sure that we have the personnel in our building. So I don't know, Ms. Mandrelli, if you want to add anything to this, or if not, I'll turn it back to them.
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Thank you for that explanation. Mr. Flory, any questions and/or comments?
Those are the rates we're going with, correct, Mr. Levis?
If we vote on it.
So, yeah, those are the rates that we're asking you to approve, the $15 an hour for teaching assistant subs, and $225 for the nurses.
And $145 for this. Well, we already
We've already addressed. Right.
Yeah, we already did the subs.
Okay, Madam
You're good?
Chair. I'm
Okay. Mr. Murray.
This question, does RIDE have any sort of reimbursement right now? I'd heard that there's a $100 reimbursement for
So
substitutes.
that's a great question. We applied, they put out a grant and we completed the grant. I think one of the school committee members actually had shared with me, and we received it and we completed it immediately, and we submitted it, I believe last Friday. We submitted that grant. It's need-based, so there was, I can share it with the school committee, but it was need-based. So what RIDE had indicated was that depending on how many people applied in the funding, they were hopeful that every district could, that applied could get some money, but they were clear that it's need-based. So, and it's COVID related. So not just somebody has the flu or somebody has an appointment, but we have to justify, and, based on what we're already seeing, that's not going to be an issue with us. It comes down to, is our need greater, is Providence greater than our need? Does Central Falls or Woonsocket? That's what we'll be competing against. So, but we did submit that, and it is $100 a day that they'll pay. So.
No, I appreciate that, because that's helpful to know. If you could share that with the committee.
Yep.
Appreciate it. I heard about it. I think it's important for people to know that we're at least trying to cover some of these costs.
Mhm.
I'm assuming that do these have the same expiration as you had the other bump up? I think it was July, correct?
Yeah, so we put the sunset, I think, was in the MOU with the union. These were not part of that. I mean, I guess we could say the nursing would be, but I honestly feel that these nursing rates aren't going to go down. And again, if we have to pay an agency, it's going to cost us at least double the $225 a day, and usually more. So, and right now it's really even hard. So what we're trying to do is be able to have we'd like to have nurses that could float around. If we could get a couple of subs would be great. So, I mean, that could be part of the motion. But I think with the teaching assistant and, like I said, with the nursing, I feel that these aren't inflated rates. I think these are what we need to do moving forward to keep individuals in place.
Yeah, I appreciate the fact that you included, one of the things I railed on last time was that, in fairness, was that you didn't have the comparison data. So I appreciate the fact that you're showing what other districts are doing. I know that what you've done so far has been effective. I know that we had lower rates than that had impacted even last year our ability to get substitutes. So acknowledge all that. I guess the only thing, and not so much a sunset, but this does have a budgetary impact. If we could put something, maybe it's part of the motion, that we will at least revisit this prior to the next fiscal year budget, just so we have an update on what the fiscal impact has been, what is likely to be. And I'm afraid to ask Sarah, but none of this, I'm assuming, has been built into the current budget scenario. Have you bumped up? I know you bumped up some of the numbers for substitutes.
Right. So, and when I gave you the percentage increase last time, I did, the percentage increase in sub rates for the entire substitute category, where I increased it the sub teacher amount, which was like a 50% bump up. So I increased that entire sub line when I presented out the net impact to you by the 50%. You'll notice that not all of those rates went up by 50%. So we did shift a bunch into the COVID budget, and I think we're even trying to shuffle some things around with the COVID budget. We requested it to be returned from the Department of Ed. So where we think we're not going to be able to spend, or we took out like PD as a priority because we're already trying to address that and put in more money for subs and overages, and then with the sub costs. So I'm trying to account for it, within the COVID budget. I didn't change the regular budget all that much because I'm hoping that we can cover it in the COVID budget when those funds come in. So I would say it's accounted for, but again, depending on how much of a runaway train this becomes, I'm not sure if what we have in there is enough, but we're at least attempting.
No, I get that. And I know you're doing your best guessing here on some of this stuff. So at least we're trying to account for it in the budget. That's my biggest question, is if we were just trying to stick to what last year was and hope for the best this year. It sounds like you've done the bump ups, and at least we're trying to predict. That's what budgets are, prediction anyway. Don, did you have something to chime in? I see your hand.
Yeah, I just wanted to add one other thing to the conversation. It's because our rate is low, there's a lot of variability on getting people day to day. You can have somebody one day and not the next, and so we're constantly hunting and trying to track down people. With a higher rate, we can secure people to be assigned to buildings and take a little different approach instead of just going out day to day to find subs for one particular job that needs to be filled. With the sub teachers, we've actually taken the approach of assigning substitute floaters to buildings for the entire week to try to eliminate the cross-contamination between buildings or districts. And we're actually thinking if we can get enough teacher assistants, we can secure them to do the same thing. And then we haven't had a single day where we haven't needed teachers or teacher assistants in any of the buildings that are fully operating. And if we could secure people to be assigned to those buildings, there's always going to be work for them to do. And if it's not at their building, then you know what, we'll figure out the next step. But I think having a higher rate does give us some security, and it gives us a little bit of an opportunity to also address the health part of this whole thing by having the stable pod assigned to the building.
Understood. Thanks for the input, Don. And that's all I have, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Cowett. Mrs. Colunian.
I was looking over these last night, and I thank you for putting the other districts there so we can compare. And I can see that we have to bump this up. I mean, you know, as Luke said before, you know, we had problems last year getting subs. We had huge problems. So, you know, knowing that, you know, we have to be competitive or we're going to have more problems this year, especially since we're asking them not just, you know, to sub in our schools, but technically risking their lives or, you know, or risking getting COVID, you know, by going into a school. So I think I'm in favor of this.
Thank you, Mrs. Colunian. And Mr. Pearson.
No, everyone asked good questions, so no questions at this time.
Okay, I believe we're ready to make a motion, and then we can ask the public if they have any comments. So is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve the increase in the substitute rate for nurses and teacher assistants as presented / amended.
I second the motion.
Okay.
Can we amend the motion with the review date, or is that something we would just want to do through a gentleman's agreement here?
We could do that. Mr. Florio, did you want to amend it, Mr. Murray?
Sure, I can take a stab at it. I make a motion to approve the increase in substitute rate for nurses and teachers assistants as presented amended with a review date, with a review by the school committee prior to the fiscal 2021 budget approval. That seem reasonable?
Isn't it going to be 22?
Yes, 22. FY 22.
I know, time flies when you're having fun.
Yeah,
So,
I apologize.
so that would be fiscal 22.
I'm still stuck on this budget, you know.
I know. It's because we haven't gotten it yet. We still think we're still in FY 21, 20. So, okay, I see one hand raised, Mr. Murphy.
Steve, unmute your microphone. Kathleen? Just need-
She might have hit it by error.
Yeah. So
Perhaps you raised it accident.
I'm sorry, Mr. Murphy, I didn't hear you.
She may have raised it accident.
Yes, so if she's still there when we go to citizens' comments, you can always comment at that point. All right, so I think we have a motion on the floor. Could we have a roll call vote, please?
Kathy Patnode,
Yes.
Dave Florio,
Yes.
Luke Murray,
Yes.
Donna Colunian,
Yes.
James Pearson,
No.
Motion carries 4 with 1 negative vote. So 4-1. Motion carries. Moving on to the superintendent's report. Mr. Levis, did you want to
Sure,
start?
I'm gonna start by, I have a couple items I want to talk about in terms of return to school. But the first one is I want to have Ms. Maycumber, and I know she has some of her team here, talking about, we were just talking about substitutes and coverage. I want to applaud the high school that they've worked together and with the teachers to cover as much as possible internally, which has a major budget impact on us, but also would helps us in terms of providing substitutes and additional. They'll talk about if they're coming up with what they plan on doing to help us cover, lunches, and there's been again, they have a great presentation, I think, and they'll entertain questions. And then I have a couple items after that. So I know Mr. Coward may also jump in and help them with this presentation, but I'll turn it over to Ms. Maycumber. And I don't know, Mr. Murphy, if you can, Ms. Maycumber, you could share your own screen, or Mr. Murphy, you could put up their presentation.
Yeah, I think Mr. Murphy is going to share our slides. So when we had worked together this summer to create a schedule for the hybrid model, we had to do all different schedules for distance learning, for hybrid. But one of the things that we struggled with was lunch coverage. And we, I think, are probably the only school in the district that did not require any additional staffing to handle lunches. But as we get closer and we've had to really do some of the nitty gritty work, we're finding a lot of, we're coming into some problems right now, and we want to present our solution that we have for this. So our solution is actually to offer to have an early dismissal on Thursdays and Fridays. And Thursdays and Fridays are our B&D days, which have our advisories on them. So basically, if you go to the next slide, Jim, our change in the schedule, we are, we intend to adjust the hybrid schedule to include a 12:30 dismissal on Thursdays and Fridays in order to ensure appropriate supervision, to ensure that our CTE blocks are uninterrupted, to provide greater academic support for all students, so students that are in the building on those days, and also for students who are home on those days, and also to avoid the paying any overages or coverage for advisories. We thought we could get around it, but as we went through things, we started to see that this was going to be really costly to do what we had originally intended to do. So you go to the next slide, Jim. So basically, we're able to make our lunches work on Tuesdays and Wednesdays without additional staffing. But again, we're running into problems on Thursday and Friday. We do have a contractual obligation for teachers to receive a 30-minute duty-free lunch. On Tuesdays and Wednesdays, they are remaining in the classrooms with the students, but we're giving them back that time on the other 2 days of the week. And right now, the current schedule that we have is in between the CTE double block periods. And our initial, what we wanted to do initially was to move kids out of advisories and into advisories with their CTE teacher. But we are finding that that is not working at all, because we had to we're splitting our school into two groups, the A through L group and the M through Z group. And because we're finding that those groups are completely unbalanced, we've run into a lot of problems. I think Tim's going to take it from here. And Jim, if you go to the next slide. Tim Chase, you want to pick it up from here? Is Tim still awake? This is past bedtime.
I was muted. I was just talking for about 3 minutes before I realized that I was muted still. What we're dealing with here as administrators is our job's to problem solve. I think, I always say that our job description is fix it. So that requires a lot of trial and error and thinking things through. And in doing this, I'm a couple of months away from my 21st year as a high school administrator. And I can tell you, obviously, just like everyone else's lives, this is an entirely new paradigm that we've never seen anything like before. So we're dealing with a set of mandates and obligations and working within this reality, right? So the biggest thing is we're trying to maximize our teaching and learning. So we're going to go into a whole new shift away from our distance learning and into a hybrid system where half of our kids are here every day. Meanwhile, at the same exact time, half of our kids are in those same classes, but outside still doing distance learning and then alternating. So the idea of teaching and learning and supporting kids with all kinds of different needs and in all kinds of different programs is super complicated to begin with. Now we have to add in that we're limiting exposure to a virus. We have to contact trace, we have to protect our kids and our teachers and keep everyone healthy. It's super complicated. And we're running into a million different things that we're problem solving. And one of them was, in this case, and it kind of encapsulates all of those things, eating lunch in a classroom, having enough coverage, and also meeting our contractual obligations to the teachers. So as Brooke said, on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, we were okay. Teachers will be in the classroom with the kids and they will be eating, but they don't get that 30-minute duty-free lunch that is contractually we're obligated to do and that they deserve. It's been a bargain. Additionally, in order for us to make that work, we had to put advisory in between the two blocks of the CTE blocks when kids are in here doing their CTE programs. The reason those are blocked together is kids are doing kind of long-term projects and work projects that are pretty big. And you can't, we started to think this through, we can't have kids stop in the middle of some things and then come back to them 90 minutes later. So you can imagine if someone has half a haircut done, or they're dyeing somebody's hair and they're leaving the dye in, and then I'll be back in 90 minutes and we'll see, you'll end up with a haircut like mine probably in that situation. You can't leave food in the oven and then come back 90 minutes later and expect everything to be fine, or to have orders ready to go for the restaurant. Silk screening and printing and things like that can't be left and then come back. So we recognized that that was a problem as well. In addition, we had to break our advisories in a different way. Right now they're alphabetical. So what would have to happen is students who are seniors who have been with the same advisor for 3 years, who have a relationship, who have built up that gravitas in those classes, and they really know one another and they're getting support in that room, would have to go to different advisories because of the mandate, again, that we go to A through L on one day and M through Z the next day. And again, as Brooke had said, there's a disproportionality there. We have about 170 more students in the A through L group than we do the M through Z, which means we have about 10 or 11 extra advisories. So we don't have the advisors to be able to cover that and be able to do lunches in there during that time. We just don't have the manpower to be able to do that right now. And we don't have enough supervisory assistants, as you know, because we just talked about that, to be able to hire people to come into those rooms to allow for teachers to be able to get their lunches too. So you're problem solving, right? So the next thing is, okay, could we put kids in the cafeteria? Well, again, trying to do that in a school with more than 1,400 kids gets super complicated in terms of the contact tracing, figuring out where kids exactly were sitting and who they were sitting with, and that they are spaced appropriately apart, and that they're not moving around, they're not interacting in a way that's going to spread anything. And if it does, or if anyone ends up with the virus, either whether they got it at home or they got it in school, we've now got to figure out exactly who they were around during that time in a cafeteria with 250 kids. It's super hard to be able to do that. It's hard enough to do it right now in a regular classroom situation. So the cafeteria is not really an option for us right now. And finally, and lastly, just to support our kids in a better way, if kids are in that advisory in the building, they're not going to be able to access ACLAB to get additional help like they do normally in our normal world that we would live in, where kids would go to advisory and then to ACLAB, because we can't have kids getting up and walking around the building and just going to classes to get help from their teachers. So the best case scenario would be they sit in that advisory in the room with 15 other kids with earphones in, hopefully being able to do a Google Meet with the teacher who's in the same building and down the hall, but 15 different kids on 15 different Google Meets trying to talk to 15 different teachers at the same time isn't necessarily a great environment for them either. So if we're able to release them, they can take a lunch, go home, and then get into that ACLAB in their own home, in their own environment, where teachers are still here in the building. They can get that help in a different way than they would be in a certainly a louder environment and a more difficult environment. So students with who have ADHD or have any kind of difficulties with attention, it's going to be much harder for them to work that out in an advisory room with a bunch of other kids than it would be if they're at home.
Jim, can you go to the next slide? So as we started looking for solutions, we actually looked around at some other schools to see like, how are they handling this? And what we found was that these are just the schools that replied to us. I do think there are many more that are actually doing the early dismissals and the grab and go lunch that we're proposing for this for these days. And you know, we even talked to a couple others that said that they've started and they have kids in the classroom or in the cafeteria for lunch, and it's not working, and they're looking to change their schedule and move to grab and go lunch and sending kids home early. So, you know, we think that this is the best move for us right now. I don't see any negatives with it. I think it's only going to help. And actually, we're not releasing our teachers at this time. We are requiring that they stay, and they're either going to do common planning time or they're going to support kids who are at home for the day who have been, you know, either logging into classes all day or working on some of the assignments that they have. And this will be a time for teachers to touch base with those kids at home as well. So, and Jim, if you go to the last slide, Tim, if you want to just go through this.
The last slide, are we on benefits?
So the benefits of this.
Okay. So again, advisory rosters can stay the same. We don't have to break up longstanding existing relationships that kids have with teachers, especially in a year where right now the only relationships that kids have with teachers are kind of digitally right now through a screen in many cases. That most of their teachers, they've never met them in person. Unless, you know, sometimes seniors might know these teachers, but they haven't had them. So what we're finding is that kids don't have those relationships. One of the relationships that they do have that's longstanding is in their advisories with teachers who are there to help them and make them feel like they're part of something. So we don't have to break those up. Again, students are dismissed at 12:30 with the grab and go lunch bag. So they're able to get their lunch. They're able to eat it on the way home. Teachers are remaining and are available for kids to get additional help. Also for teachers to have common planning time together. It is almost impossible to understand how difficult teachers' jobs are going to become. They're already difficult in distance learning when we went from March until June. It became exponentially more difficult this year from September to now, while teachers are trying to teach in an entirely different way, live, in person, on time, and also manage all of the questions and answers, manage all of the planning, which takes twice as long to do. Now that everybody's starting to get to a place where they're pretty comfortable with what they have to do, it's now just figuring out how to do it and managing their time. Now we're going to ask for an entirely new system where you're going to have half the kids in front of you, and then meanwhile, half the kids are somewhere else, and you've got to keep everybody learning and moving forward at the same time. Super hard. So again, having that common planning time available to them is going to be very valuable. We will save money on not having to have teachers or other people in the building covering for people to cover for a lunchtime where kids are sitting there and eating, just to have a body in front of them to supervise them, versus they can eat on the way home, they can eat at home, and they can get help while they're doing that at the same time. One of the real beauties of this is there's no impact on instructional time or academic courses at all. So the time is only coming out of what would be advisory time. Students are still able to access all their teachers for ACT Lab, which is the important time during that time for kids that are struggling. And again, one of the nice things is, as we discussed before, Mrs. Aronakis talked about our custodial staff and the need for us to make sure that we're doing a good job. That gives them an extra hour to get started with deep cleaning and disinfecting in the rooms and in the hallways and everywhere, because their job is super hard right now as well. So it's just a win-win all the way around. There really is no loss here. And
that last slide, Jim, is just the schedule itself, how, you know, just what the proposal is for the dismissal on those 2 days. We're able to keep periods 7 and 8 together back to back, so that you can have that double block career center program, and then moving advisory and ACT Lab to the end of the day. It's about 35 minutes, 34 minutes, but it allows at least for us to have the advisory time with kids. We think that that's important, but then also be able to send them home for lunch. So That's kind of where we stand. It's just a little bit different than the original schedule that we have sent out, and we wanted to let you know about this today. And if you have any questions.
Thank you for that presentation. I'm going to start with Mr. Florio. Do you have any questions for the team that has just presented? I think you're muted, Mr. Florio.
No questions, Madam Chair. They seem to have everything together.
Okay. All right, Mr. Murray.
A nice job on the, I know you put a lot of work into this, and this is not an easy time. So, and I'm not part of the day-to-day, so far be it from me to weigh in on this. It sounds like you've done your due diligence. I appreciate the fact that you did reach out to other school districts to see what they're doing, because I always say, why come up with an idea when you can steal a good one? And if this is the way it's trending, at least we know we're in a similar boat as many communities. Is it fair to say that this is the primary issue or challenge is with the CTE program students? Because it seems like that's the reference, but is that the total?
Well, that was one issue, but again, that A through L and M through Z being so off balance, and because it's a district-wide thing that A through L is going on one day and M through Z, because of high school kids maybe caring for younger siblings, like you can't just change it arbitrarily and say, oh, let's just balance it out for the day. We can't do that. We're a whole system. So once we tried to break up the advisories so it would allow for A through L kids to be in with M through Z kids in advisories, so 2 advisors could cover for each other, we realized it was impossible. We were going to need about 10 to 15 people just to cover those advisories, and that's without anyone being absent, any teachers being absent. And so we really, this past week, we just looked at each other like, what are we going to do? This is absolutely not going to work. So this is definitely the only solution that we can come up with.
It would seem to be so easy, right, from the start.
Nothing has been easy. I will say that teachers have been awesome. They have gone with everything that we've put out there, and it keeps changing, and the parents have been really, really supportive and great too. So, we need to get it right. But like I said, we didn't require any additional staffing, which is, I think, the important thing right now, especially when we sit through a meeting where it's all about budget, and we're not asking for any more money, and we're not really losing any instructional time by doing this.
Now, I know you've been also doing a good job in putting information out to parents, which is important. I think parents just want to know that, well, they want to be in the know, and they want to know why, and this will obviously shorten up the schedule, but there's a rationale behind it, and we've said it from the start. People need to stay dynamic, and these are odd times, so hopefully we'll be through this. So I appreciate all your efforts. I know it's a team effort, Dave.
I think it's important to reinforce that although it's a shortening of the schedule, Mr. Murray, there's no loss of instruction time or from academic classes or academic courses. So
yeah, and I think at the secondary level too, parents aren't as, kids can go home. They can go home and they can do their work. It's a little different than the elementary grades where you don't have options as a parent. You've got to then be home or find childcare. So it'll be a little bit lesser impact, I'm assuming.
And not breaking up the advisories is really big. I mean, when I've jumped on advisories through the distance learning, I can't get over how many kids are on those Google Meets. Like, they're excited to see their advisors, because those are the people that they have relationships with. They haven't really met their teachers yet in person, but they know their advisors, and they're all on there because they crave that relationship with their teachers. So I think it's important that we still have the advisory and that they're intact and we didn't have to break them up.
All right. Well, thank you. Thanks again for all the hard work and putting something together. I know it's going to be some, I'll call it dynamic weeks ahead. But you guys have done a great job so far. So thank you.
Oh, wish us luck. Thank you, Mr. Murray. Mrs. Colonian.
I think you did a great job. I problem solve all day long, so I know exactly the steps you went through to get to where you are. And I just have to say that, it's great that you went out and you found what other districts are doing also, and I think it's going to work. I think you did a great job. Thank you. And the fact that you didn't lose any instructional time, that's the most important part.
Yep.
So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Coloni, and Mr. Pearson.
No questions at this time. Thank you for the presentation.
Okay, and I just want to say that I think this was an elegant solution. I think it meets everything that we're required to do. The fact that advisories didn't get split up and that you have not lost any instructional time just makes so much sense. And I'm 100% in favor of it, and I thank you all for your hard work on that. Mr. Cowett, did you have something to say?
The only thing I wanted to add, besides the fact that they were very collaborative and dynamic in coming up with a solution here and work together to create an opportunity for kids to maintain a strong instructional program, but then still help address a problem which is really what I wanted to mention, is throughout the district. Lunch, recess at the elementary level is the most difficult time of our day right now. Arrival, dismissal is difficult because we have many, many moving parts. And so this solution doesn't just help the high school, it actually helps the whole district, because if we don't have to worry about throwing a whole lot of subs and substitutes and teacher assistants up at the high school to cover all of these duty-free lunches, we can try to then reallocate people to other places. I'm not saying move people from the high school, but I just mean when we're looking at trying to get subs on a daily basis, we don't have to worry about how many we need to get for the high school, because they've come up with a solution that really only they could come up with, because they have older kids. They have kids who can go home to a house and let themselves in because of their age. With the little kids, we don't have that option. And so we have a lot of challenges around lunch and recess. So it's a good solution for their kids, for their school community, but it's really a good solution for the whole district because it helps us quite a bit.
Great, thanks for adding that. I'm not sure the rest of us would have realized that, so that's wonderful. I think we have one hand up, Mr. Oh, actually, I think we need to vote on this, right? Or not?
No.
No, so we're fine. Yeah, so we had one attendee that has their hand up that would like to speak, Mr. Murphy.
Okay, Kelly, you're up. Just unmute your mic.
Hi, everyone. Kelly Aronakis again. First, I want to commend the high school staff for working so collaboratively and really working through a lot of problems. The administrators have been very kind about giving teachers praise. They deserve some praise too. But I do just want to bring to your attention as the union president, if you notice the schedule that the administration put up, all the other districts that they showed are doing their early release every day of the week. The reason for that is so teachers can get their lunchtime. With us only doing it on Thursday and Friday, teachers are still not getting their unassigned lunch on Tuesday and Wednesday. I have teachers who are elderly, who do not want to stay in a classroom while their students take off their masks to eat. So I think that's going to be a contractual problem. The staff is not trying to be jerky about it. We've bended and flexed and done a lot of things, but not having your lunch with at least a half hour to be by yourself is probably going to be an issue. And like I said, I think the bigger issue is we've been very flexible. It's very hard for some of my elderly staff to say, I'm comfortable staying in a room where everybody takes off their mask. So if you only do it for those 2 days, I very likely will have to file a grievance, as other districts did, and then the other districts had to go to the early release every day to make sure teachers get a lunch. So again, it's no disrespect to anybody. I think everybody's trying very hard to be flexible. But yeah, Ms. Patnode, you had said, I think 2 meetings ago, when somebody said about having live meetings now at school committee, you said, I'm old, I'm not leaving. I have teachers that are old and I don't want to be with, a bunch of kids that have no masks on. So we're trying to balance doing what's right for everybody and trying to balance keeping everybody safe. So I just want to give you that heads up. If you saw all the other schools, that's the reason they're doing Tuesday through Friday early release. If we only do 2 of the 4, I just know it's going to be a problem.
Ms. Padno, can I address that?
Sure.
So one thing is, and I appreciate Miss Aronakis bringing that up, but this has been in the works and discussed for a long time. And in full disclosure, we put out our schedule, and this was brought to my attention just this week. I believe just this week, that in terms of the situation that the high school's running into. And, as of today, Ms. Maycomber called me, I don't know, maybe 2 hours before the meeting, 3 hours before the meeting, and proposed what Ms. Aronakis had proposed. And my feeling is that this is a plan we had put out there. We're already changing it. And while I agree with Mr. Murray that these are secondary people and they can get out early, my feeling is that this is, not a blindside to anybody. And what I said to Ms. Maycomber is, let's do this, let's start this way and see how it goes. And then we can always come back and we can change, because it doesn't impact other schools. We've worked out the transportation. But my feeling is that, we put out a plan and, as superintendent, I just wasn't comfortable changing the plan completely. My feeling is they could make it work Tuesday and Wednesday. We couldn't make it work Thursday and Friday. So, as superintendent, I'm willing to go back and look at it. But again, the part that Ms. Aronakis brought up about grievance is perfectly fine. But my feeling is that, this has been a collaborative effort working with everybody to develop this plan. So, I feel like this is a good compromise right now, and we can come back to the table in a few weeks, perhaps. But I just wanted to state that. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there another hand up, Mr. Murphy?
Nope, that's the only one.
Okay. Did you have something to say, Mr. Murray? I saw your hand go up. You're on mute. Yeah.
Sorry, I think, so I guess my question is, and I guess Craig, this is more for you or the administrators. We had a plan. The plan was to go full day, correct? For 4 days a week.
Mhm.
You amended the plan down to go half day, 2 days. And what you're telling us is that there was there was originally no pushback on the original plan. Is that correct up until now?
Yeah, I mean, in my conversations, there was not. And I just feel that this is a good compromise. I was told originally that we can do it Tuesday and Wednesday, but there's no way we're able to do it Thursday and Friday. And honestly, that's what Ms. Maycomber did call me today, but my feeling is this is the plan that we agreed upon, and let's stick with this. And then we can always come back and review and revise.
We hadn't heard of any pushback from the teachers until this week. And the reason we went and adjusted the Thursday and Friday was because we just couldn't make it work. We could not make those days work. If we do have to go to, if we had to go to early dismissal on the Tuesday and Wednesday, we will lose instructional time. So the Thursday and Friday was not a loss of instructional time, but the Tuesday and Wednesday would be shortened classes, because there are 4 academic classes those days as opposed to the 3 academic classes on the Thursday and Friday.
Well, I appreciate what you've done. I'm supportive of the plan. I know myself. I understand what Kelly's bringing up. But as I said, as a whole community, and again, I look at my role as helping to speak for my constituents. I've got nothing but praise for the teachers so far. I know that the teachers are being very flexible, like you all are. I hope they will remain that way. We all know this is an extremely tough time, so I think the more that we can all come together and try to make it work. I understand the pushback on it, but I really hope that everyone can come to the table and make this work. I'd hate to see the kids continue to lose instructional time or sacrifice more than they already have. So I know you're trying to thread the needle here, and I appreciate that.
Okay, I think, Mr. Levis, you can finish your report.
Great, thank you. So a couple of things I just wanted to address. I want to thank, elementary school's been in today. This week we had grades 5 and 6, and you know, what I see and what I've experienced is that prior to coming into school, and we're experiencing that, I assume that'll be the experience that teachers from grades 7 to 12 will have, those that haven't come in. There's a lot of anxiety, a lot of concern. And, you know, you've heard it, we've all heard it. And there's a lot of reason. I mean, we're in a major health crisis. We can't dismiss that. But what I've seen going into the elementary schools is, you know, there's a lot of positives taking place. And I just want to thank everybody, you know, in terms of, you know, our custodial staff. I mentioned our drivers and food service and our teachers and support staff. It's all hands on deck every single day. But to go in and see the interaction between our students and our teachers. Today I spent a few hours over at Western and trying to help out, really probably got in the way more than I was helping out. But it was just amazing to see the interaction between, you know, the teachers and our students. And, you know, that's why we do what we do. But I want to just applaud everybody that's made this work. And, you know, we know we're going to have challenges. So that's the first part. The second thing I want to just talk about is the contact tracing. You know, I talked earlier a little bit about having the nurses and the role they play. I don't know if anybody knows how exhaustive this contact tracing and how challenging it is. And I also want to applaud the Department of Health. I know they were beat up the other day. When you call the Department of Health, you get a phone bank, and I believe the phone bank is predominantly National Guards people. And I think they do a nice job answering the phones, but they're not the medical people. Sometimes you can get stuck in a loop. But when you get into the contact tracing and in those individuals that work for the Department of Health, they've actually brought in some individuals from the CDC. I want to highlight one person in particular that's a supervisor there, Christine Campagna. I find they're so professional, the work that they're doing. I mean, the tentacles by when we identify a person that may be positive and then try to identify the individuals that they may have close contact with, and making all those calls and interviewing all those individuals. And our nurses support all that by giving them all the information. We've been dealing with situations that have taken, you know, a major portion of 2 days. Phone calls are made, you know, very early in the morning, continue to be made at, you know, 10 o'clock at night. While we're having a meeting here, I got a text on a situation that I was already aware of. Nothing new, but it's just amazing the work that's going on. But it's also very challenging. And I've said before, I think I did a video where this is the world we're in. There'll be situations, and we had one today where a classroom program with staff is quarantined, and all those individuals that have been identified that may have worked, you know, over 15 minutes and within 6 feet of an individual will be quarantined. And that's why this whole issue around substitutes is so important. You know, Coventry, you know, I remember early on, we're talking about the low incident rate, and I don't know how they figure it out. It seems to be sometimes a moving target, but I was told, you know, yesterday, the 7-day total for Coventry was 33, which, again, I'm not a medical person. This is information that was shared with me from the Department of Health, but that was like the 4th highest in the state of Rhode Island. And, you know, leads to my last point. We've had some issues with, you know, the protocols. They're posted on our website. We had sent out one of our nurses, school nurse teachers, Emily at Western Coventry, had a great email, and I met with the nurses. We felt it was important enough to share with our entire district. But our nurses are, you know, protocol and Department of Health is that if a student exhibits certain symptoms, and they've changed that recently, they have to be sent home and get tested. Parents aren't happy with that. Again, this is a health crisis. We need to do what we need to do. I'm a firm believer that I still believe that kids being in school is probably the safest place. Any of the incidents we've had are individuals contracting COVID-19 outside of school. We don't have a situation yet where it's been identified that somebody is contracted in school. We've had many, you know, more individuals on distance learning that have tested positive. But we need the support of the community. You know, I can't tolerate the fact that a parent is going to, be irate or scream or swear at a school nurse teacher. I've directed them to go immediately to the administrators, but we need the support of the community. You know, we've always needed that support. You know, it's a partnership, and we're committed to do our part the best that we can. But we need the support of families and of understanding the role that we have. Our primary responsibility is still to keep our students, their families, and our staff safe. And so, you know, I'm asking the community to understand that we have a responsibility, and we understand the impact that this has. I do understand the impact this has on families. You know, when we say that at a certain point, you saw what happened in North Providence, and that impact, that's at a high school. But if we had to close down an elementary school, that's going to impact our families greatly. So it's going to take all of us to support one another. And, you know, I just want to applaud the work that's going on in our schools, the administrators, our staff. You know, I look forward to next week. I know there's a lot of anxiety as we bring back 7 to 12, but we truly are in this together. Our teachers have been phenomenal. Our administrators, our custodians, you know, there was a comment made earlier about custodians. We're short a couple of custodians. You know, we are hiring the additional, but we have people working overtime. We have people in our buildings that are doing the cleaning, but we move people around. We have 3 positions we have to fill. We have a couple of part-time positions that we're trying to fill. But so the other people are picking up the slack, you know, and that's what we find. We had several teaching assistants today that went from other buildings to go support at Western. So there is this collaborative effort, and we're in it together. You know, I always say this, and I'm sure I'm part of this too. You know, we're all exhausted, and it's those times we really need to step back and do what we need to do to support one another. This is the worst time. The last thing we need to do is finger point, you know? And so I'm just reaching out to our community at large and asking them for the support and understanding that our primary responsibility is the safety of everyone. And so but I couldn't be more proud of what's going on in our community, despite the challenges, you know, that we face financially and with potential shortages. But everybody from central office to every supervisory assistants, just keeping that focus on what's in the best interest of our students. And I just want to thank everybody for their support. Thank you.
Okay, I think you had one other thing, the all-day referendum, Mr. Levis. Did you want to speak to that?
Sorry. Well, just at the all-day referendum, we know that the financial town meeting will be on the 20th. And I believe the Thursday, the 22nd, is the all-day referendum. And, you know, somebody had mentioned before about grassroots. You know, we need individuals to get others to come out. And again, I can't tell you how to vote, but we need the support. You know, school's not going to go away. We need to continue to support our students. You know, I want, you know, again, it would have been nice for people to ask questions about the budget, but, you know, I need the support we need the support of this entire community. You know, I don't want to think of what can happen or will happen if the budget fails. And I don't want to be doom and gloom, but it's not going to just happen. Last year, and I say this publicly all the time, I believe rally took place because of an individual that was able to mobilize a community. But we need the community to mobilize and support. And, you know, I do agree that there were comments made while putting a budget forward. You know, we've been consistent with our budget. We've been consistent with our ask, and COVID will end. And, you know, it's our responsibility to do whatever it takes to provide a robust, comprehensive education to our children who are our future. And so, you know, I just need to reiterate how important this is. And, you know, it's an important time for everybody to share their voice. And we need the support. And I ask everybody to reach out to your neighbors and reach out to other parents. And, you know, typically you see there's X number of people that do the PTA, X number of people on the booster clubs. It's going to take more than those individuals. So I just want to reiterate how important October 22nd is, I mean, there's an important date in November too. But, and I already sent in my mail-in ballot. So anyways, that's what I wanted to say about the all-day referendum.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Levis. Are there any school committee members that have any questions for Mr. Levis? Just raise your hand and I'll ask you. Okay, so it looks like we can go to citizens' comments. I don't see any hands raised, Mr. Murphy. We'll give it a couple of seconds.
Or nobody.
All right, then I think it's safe to say that we can schedule the next meeting. And hopefully that meeting will be a very successful meeting because the budget will have passed. Anyway, so is there a motion to schedule the next meeting? Anyone?
I think that's the question is, and I maybe we should have phrased it differently, but I believe our original meeting was scheduled for the 22nd, which is the all-day referendum.
Yeah, and the new one's the 29th. I think we already
Okay.
kind of.
Oh, you already did. All right.
It says the 29th.
All right.
I'm just waiting for someone to make that motion. Is there someone to make that motion, Mr. Florio?
Madam Chair, make a motion that the next virtual meeting of the school committee be scheduled for Thursday, October 29th, 2020 at 6 p.m.
Second.
Could we have a roll call vote, please?
Kathy Patnode,
Yes.
Dave Florio,
Yes.
Luke Murray,
Yes.
Donna Colonian,
Yes.
Bruce Pearson.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries 5-0. And I have 8:57. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Madam Chair, I make a motion to adjourn at 8:57 p.m.
I second the motion.
And I'm not going to ask for a roll call. If you could just raise your hand. I don't think anybody opposed to us. Okay, motion carries 5-0. Thank you, everyone, and to all of our attendees and those of them that gave comments. See you at our next, well, actually, we'll see each other at the town financial meeting, I guess, because that's a joint meeting. So until the 20th, and it's my birthday on the 20th, so hopefully it's going to be a very good week for me and for this community.
Happy birthday, Madam Chair.
Well, it's a little early, but I'll be here for the town financial. Okay, good night, everyone.